Chapter 1, Sequence, Dawn. Stars twinkled, the black fog descended, and eternal silence fell upon the night. Forbidden things took root. 16 years ago, a blood-colored meteoric streak tore through the dawn, and the known world of humanity was corroded by the black fog. No one knew what terrifying unknowns that meteor had brought with it. From that day onward, the world was invaded by grotesque creatures. On a pitch-black night, I lay back on the creaky old rocking chair of a balcony flickering with faint firelight, leisurely fanning myself with an 8-section bamboo fan as I gazed at the crimson moon hanging in the sky. Unable to suppress my murmur, had I known better, I wouldn't have rented this place. Having the power cut every other day is truly torturous. Though I was just casually venting, I continued rocking leisurely in my chair. Just then, a gentle breeze blew through, extinguishing the last flickering candlelight entirely. Lost in thought, I pondered, maybe it really was time to move. In the scorching heat of summer, without electricity, lying in bed would be like being steamed alive. Forget it. I'll go check it out tomorrow if I have time. Sigh. After a sigh, with the breeze brushing against my cheeks, I pondered the issue of changing houses and slowly drifted off to sleep in the rocking chair. Until the next day, when a burning sensation on my skin jerked me awake. Suddenly remembering something, I glanced at the old, battered clock hanging in the shabby house, my expression turning grave. Oh no, I'm going to be late. Like a phantom, I dashed through the spacious corridors of the prestigious academy in the magical metropolis. Arriving at class 163, a teacher in a suit and gold-rimmed glasses stood sternly on the podium, gazing at the slouching students below with a resigned expression. After all, it was early morning, and most students stayed up late every night, their minds far from focused on studying. I called out reporting, interrupting the teacher's thoughts. After a few seconds of silence, the teacher's expression remained impassive before finally uttering, "Come in. There won't be a next time." I froze for a few seconds, slightly stunned, then hurried into the classroom and smoothly settled into my exclusive seat by the window, all in one fluid motion. I hadn't expected to sit down so peacefully today. The teacher resumed the earlier topic, repeating, 16 years ago, a blood-red meteorite fell into our world. From that day onward, everything began changing dramatically. But no matter how hard the government searched at the time, the meteorite had vanished without a trace. A dark fog then descended upon the entire world, devouring all foreign nations beyond our borders. Now, Xia country is the only remaining nation in the world. The teacher's words made many students drowsy. As he repeated them daily, everyone had heard them countless times, some could probably recite them backwards. Sitting by the window in a daze, I watched the brilliant sunshine outside, feeling everything was surreal. Just then, a voice interrupted my daydreaming. Hey, Li Chen, why are you so late today? I knew exactly who it was. Turning my head without speaking, I gestured with my eyes toward the teacher at the podium, signaling we'd talk after class. To my surprise, a stern rebuke rang out. Li Chen, still daydreaming during class, aren't you? Your eyes were practically floating to the sky. You think I didn't notice? Go stand outside. Consider it punishment for being late too. Though startled, I rose with practiced ease and walked out. Clearly this wasn't my first time. My deskmate Su Zhe, who'd spoken to me earlier, stifled laughter beside me, burying his face low. The teacher wasn't finished yet, and you, Su Zhe, get out here too. Did you think I didn't notice you sneakily eating steamed buns just now? Su Zhe, sitting across the aisle, looked utterly shocked. After a few seconds of stunned silence, he hurriedly explained, Teacher, I wasn't eating steamed buns, that was a mantu. His protest sent the whole class into laughter, while the teacher's face darkened. I suggest you leave now, or else. And just like that, Su Zhe and I found ourselves standing outside the window as fellow sufferers. Su Zhe pouted and muttered under his breath, how do you think he spotted me eating that mantu? I really thought I was stealthy. I didn't respond, my thoughts drifting off somewhere far away. After a while, Su Zhe's incessant chatter interrupted my train of thought. Frowning at him, I calmly said, I was thinking about sorting out accommodation next. Accommodation? Su Zhe grew curious about why I needed to find a place. I sighed helplessly, yeah, finding a place. It's summer now, and the electricity load in my neighborhood is too high. My place keeps having power outages. You know how terrifying it is to go without power in summer. If only I could awaken ice-based abilities. After expressing this wistful thought, I shook my head resignedly. Simply awakening any ability would be lucky enough. I didn't dare hope specifically for ice powers. Just awakening at all would suffice. Su Zhe, feeling the rising morning temperatures under the sunlight and understanding the agony of summer blackouts, suggested, why don't you come stay with me then? My place is pretty spacious, and my parents aren't home recently. Why don't you make do with staying here? I declined with a shake of my head. I don't like staying at other people's homes, it gives me an inexplicable sense of unease, and I don't like troubling others either. That's just how I am. After pondering for a while, I said, don't worry, I still have a place to stay. At least I won't end up homeless. By the way, have you felt that power inside you awakening lately? I've noticed quite a few classmates have already awakened. Nowadays, humans have evolved in a new way, awakening the power within their bodies. All of this began after the meteorite arrived. Suja sighed helplessly and patted his round belly with a bitter smile. I haven't felt anything unusual in my body, except that my appetite has increased recently. Before, 10 steamed buns would fill me up, but now I need a few more mantu to feel satisfied. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been eating mantu just now. I didn't find Fatty Sue's appetite unusual. After all, hefty folks naturally eat a bit more than ordinary people. Gazing into the classroom, I murmured with a faint smile, you might have the chance to awaken the glutton's talent, which is significantly better than those ordinary folks anyway. In this world, having talent versus having none makes all the difference. Those with talents are called sequencers and hold high status. Some companies exclusively hire sequencers as employees. Suja frowned with undisguised disgust. A glutton? I'm already this fat. If I awaken such a talent, I'll be totally screwed. Clearly he wanted nothing to do with the glutton's talent, though his current state bore striking resemblance to it. The glutton's talent is practically useless anyway, better not awaken it at all. A faint smile crept onto my lips as I found his expression amusing. My gaze drifted to the sunlit corridor, and my mood seemed to lift slightly. Although this world now had sequencers, these superhumans, the law hadn't completely shattered. People were still people, cities remained cities, only the world had changed. After a moment of silence, I suddenly noticed a wisp of aura drifting from Suja's head and chuckled, maybe you'll awaken a decent ability? Have faith in yourself and the future. In an instant, the gloomy look on Suja's face brightened with renewed hope. Chapter 2, Awakening, Life. Suja glanced at me, lost in thought, hesitated for a few seconds, then finally asked, Brother Chen, haven't you felt anything at all? Surely by the time I awaken, you won't still be an ordinary person, right? I fell silent, my eyes scanning the classroom. In my eyes, many students in the class have a mysterious aura hovering above their heads. I knew Suja was about to awaken precisely because of this energy. But this aura is quite enigmatic. Some people don't have it, while others possess an immense presence. Scanning the room, only the teacher droning on at the lectern had such a dense concentration of this energy that it seemed to spill over the entire podium. Sometimes I wonder, what exactly is this thing, and why can only I see it? Since birth, I've seen all kinds of people every day, many with this peculiar aura above their heads, and apparently, I'm the only one who can perceive it. I've tried telling others this secret, but no one believes me. It's too absurd for a child who hasn't even awakened yet to see whether others might awaken. Though this power is weak in newborns, the frightening precision with which it predicts who will awaken is undeniable. But who would believe it? I didn't broadcast my becoming a sequence seeker far and wide, only mentioning it to a few close friends, yet none of them took it seriously. The key point is, at just 16 years old without having undergone the awakening ceremony, who would believe I'd become a sequence seeker? I shook my head slightly. My body feels no different, and my abilities don't reveal whether I can awaken. Still, I cling to hope for awakening. Life is far too starkly real otherwise. Only by becoming a sequence seeker can one progress step by step toward success and take control of one's own destiny. At that moment, the teacher's scolding voice came from the classroom. You two still chattering outside? Wait until class ends and report to the office. Soon after class ended, Suja and I followed the teacher to the office. The academy treated teachers fairly well, providing them with separate spacious offices. The teacher sat on a wooden chair, took a sip of water from a pink thermos, and said slowly, Li Chen, what's going on recently? Late every day? Do you still want to awaken? And you, Suja, if it weren't for your decent family background, we'd have sent you home long ago. His words stung but were justified, with me being late every day and Suja secretly eating steamed buns in class. Who else would he scold? Suja said with a grimace, Teacher you, I can't help my appetite, I feel awful if I don't eat. Teacher you ignored him and turned to me, who had been silent all along. Li Chen, I know your family's circumstances are difficult, but you can't be late every day. It's a disservice to your parents who died fighting at the border. You need to strive for yourself, the reins of life are in your own hands. I nodded with a somewhat indifferent expression and replied, I'll fix the tardiness. I didn't want to explain. Being late was being late. Teacher you sighed as he looked at me. He knew my parents had died early, and I barely saw them after birth, only realizing they were gone when the urn arrived. So, I had little emotional attachment to them, far less than Suja beside me. Then, teacher you turned to the fidgeting Suja and said, Suja, have your father come to the school tomorrow, there's something to discuss. And from now on, if you eat buns in class, step out to finish them. Suja fell silent for a moment, then nodded slightly with a solemn expression. Forcing a stiff smile, he asked, Teacher, you're not going to make my dad punish me in front of the other students, are you? Teacher Yu's forehead creased with a faint dark line. Don't worry, it's just a minor issue, I'm not calling on you. Surely you don't want your father finding out about you eating buns during class, do you? As they spoke, I stood to the side, my gaze drifting occasionally toward the golden but headless statue on Teacher Yu's desk. It looked oddly familiar, though I couldn't quite recall where I'd seen it before. Suddenly, Suja leaned in with a mischievous grin. I furrowed my brows and asked, What do you want? He replied, You were so engrossed, didn't even hear Professor Yu calling you. Had to get your attention this way. At this moment, Teacher Yu glanced at his watch. Feeling that the time was almost up, he shooed us out of the office. Stroking the statue, he murmured to himself, "Teaching isn't the right profession for me. The awakening ceremony is about to begin, and it's time to part again." Ah, never mind. Suja and I returned to the classroom. The class was lively, but the two of us seemed somewhat out of place. Suja asked me, "Brother Chen, after awakening, do you think we'll still need to attend classes here?" Recently, there have been quite a few Special Operations Bureau vehicles at the school gate. As if they're selecting people, I asked puzzledly. Is the Bureau coming to pick people up this early? In previous years, didn't they only come during the awakening days? Suja put on a thoughtful pose, resting his chin in his hand, his chubby appearance making it rather comical. "I'm not too sure either," he said. Heard it from Big Mouth. "I've been watching closely these past 2 days, and those really are Special Operations Bureau vehicles." Big Mouth was the gossip-loving girl in our class, though her information tended to be accurate. Suja speculated, could it be that our academy has produced an S-tier talent? I didn't believe it. There are no more than 50 S-tier talents in the entire country. What are the odds of one appearing in our academy? Suja also thought it was unlikely. S-tier talents aren't exactly common as cabbages. Just then, the class bell rang. In the dean's office, several men in black uniforms spoke gravely to an elderly man with white hair. "Dean Gu, it seems there might be someone from a cult organization in your academy. We need to investigate." The old man replied calmly, "Approved." Class ended quickly, and as we were leaving school, Suja and I walked down the road, glancing curiously at the fully armed agents from the Special Affairs Bureau stationed at the school gate. Suja's eyes nearly popped out of his head. "Chen, look at that woman with the incredible figure, flames are erupting from her body." My eyes narrowed slightly, allowing me to see the erratic, unstable aura hovering above that woman's head, completely different from Teacher Yu's. One was like a storm raging at sea, the other forever calm. Could this be due to her using her abilities? What would happen if Teacher Yu used hers? Lost in thought, I only snapped out of it when the woman got into her car. I quickly pulled Suja away before she completely captured his heart. Suja protested teasingly, "Shengu, I was just observing, not measuring her dimensions. You were staring pretty hard too." I shot him a disdainful look. "I was reading her aura, you were checking out her figure." "Same thing? Focus on awakening your powers instead." Back home, I washed my face and murmured at my youthful reflection, another exhausting day. Can't be late again tomorrow. The awakening is coming soon, need to prepare. Thankfully, the power was still on, didn't have to sleep on the balcony freezing. After a quick dinner, I lay on the worn-out bed, staring blankly at the yellowed ceiling. Just 16, no one would hire me. The only way out is the awakening in 2 days. Become a sequence holder, at least then I wouldn't starve. After becoming a sequence holder, I could at least earn something with that status. That much I understood. Am I truly a sequence? Am I qualified to be a sequence? Do I even have the capability to become one? Every night, I find myself pondering the purpose of my existence, whether I live for myself or for my departed parents. But neither seems to fit. My life feels shrouded in darkness, and soon, these thoughts lull me into slumber. Clang, clang, clang. A tremendous bell toll echoed in my mind, instantly jolting me awake. My eyes flew open in shock to find myself surrounded by endless darkness, with the bell chime still reverberating through the void. Where is this place? Shouldn't I be at home? Utterly bewildered, I froze momentarily before rising to my feet and turning toward the source of the bell's toll. 7 ethereal staircases stretched across the void, connecting to the boundless darkness beyond, their destinations obscured from view. Before each staircase stood a magnificent gate, each one distinctly colored. Subconsciously, my gaze was drawn to a wide-open white gate. Within those majestic white doors, there seemed to be a subtle presence beckoning me. Strangely enough, the gate felt intensely familiar to me, as if I knew it intimately, almost as though it had always belonged to me. Baffled, I slowly approached the open white gate. Surreal as it was, I found myself walking through the void of this space, an impossibility I'd never dared imagine. The distance wasn't far. Soon, I stood before the gate. After pausing for a few seconds to ponder the white staircase beneath me, leading to who knows where, I took my first step onto it. In an instant, I felt an overwhelmingly terrifying pressure that nearly crushed me to the ground. After taking just 2 steps forward, I could no longer withstand that pressure. What on earth was happening? At that moment, a wisp of white mist, thin as silk, drifted through the void and seeped into my body. I could distinctly sense the presence of an unfamiliar energy within me, yet nothing seemed to happen. Then came a blur, everything began to dissolve. I awoke in the dead of night, my clothes drenched in cold sweat. What exactly just happened? And what were those 7 gates? My eyes couldn't conceal my shock. I was certain the dream I'd just experienced was real, yet I found it almost impossible to believe. After all, this was the first time I'd encountered such a bizarre dream. My gaze drifted to the still dark sky outside the window, my expression somewhat dazed. It seemed I wouldn't be getting much sleep tonight. The sun rose as usual. Today I wasn't late, though faint dark circles shadowed my eyes, clear signs of a restless night. Suddenly an unexpected voice broke the silence. Suja walked in holding several steamed buns, quipping, "Well, look who's here. Dus bro, what a rare sight seeing you come to class so early." My thoughts about last night's dream were interrupted as I turned my head and responded, "Didn't sleep well, it's indeed a bit early today." Suja grinned, holding out a steamed bun toward me and said, "Shinji, come eat this. Class should be starting soon, and I don't want to be caught eating buns like yesterday." Taking the bun without any hesitation, after all, Fatty Sue and I are sworn brothers who occasionally play tricks on each other but still share a solid friendship. While munching on the bun, Suja brought up something he'd noticed earlier. "Shinji, seems like those Special Affairs Bureau vehicles have left today. I even took a detour around the Institute's gate just now, didn't spot a single one. They must have left by now." I laughed. "You didn't circle back just to catch another glimpse of that woman in red, did you?" Fatty Sue scratched his head with a mischievous grin. My guess had hit the mark. "Oh, by the way, the awakening ceremony's been moved up. Seems like it's happening this afternoon. Some cult infiltrated the city, so they rescheduled it to today to avoid disrupting students' awakenings." Earlier? I pondered for a few seconds. This situation was quite rare, though it was indeed considerate of the students. But during this period, with the cult invading the Magic City, they shouldn't be targeting students, right? What do you think? I actually doubt the cult has any interest in students. After all, none of the students have awakened yet, and even those with good potential wouldn't be easily identified, right? Besides, with so many teachers guarding the academy, they couldn't possibly be that bold? Suja laughed and said, "True, what would a cult organization want with students like us? We're just ordinary people. Even if the cult came, the most they could take is my life, which is destined to be sacrificed for heroism. Chen good, just watch me, I'm definitely gonna awaken some super cool ability in a bit." Chapter 4, Destiny, Zodiac. Many parents were already dropping their kids off at the school gates. Today was the annual awakening ceremony, a moment that could change one's fate. Those with great talent might soar to new heights, while those without would be left as ordinary people. I stood silently by the window, my lips twitching slightly, my eyes dimmed with emotion. Suja had been called away by his dad, leaving the classroom completely empty. Maybe all the others were laughing and chatting with their families now. Awakening? I murmured softly, then settled into my seat and quietly began to ponder. Soon, students trickled into the classroom one after another, chatting and laughing among themselves. "Did you hear? A girl from the next class awakened on her own yesterday and even got a C-rank ability. So jealous. What's there to envy? Today's the day for awakenings anyway. It's just a few days early, big deal. Whether we soar as dragons or crawl as insects, it all comes down to today." Their words fell on my ears without stirring much, just as that student had said. After today, we'd either soar high as dragons or remain mere insects, either ascending to the clouds or sinking into ordinariness. Just then, a pleasant voice sounded beside me. "Li Chen, you're early today. I thought you'd be late again." A graceful figure approached. She wore a black dress that draped past her calves, skin as smooth as jade, still carrying a trace of youthful charm on her face, stunning as ever. My expression remained unchanged, even slightly evading her intense gaze as I replied, "I am a bit early today, but what brings the esteemed Miss Son to seek me out?" The girl ran her fingers through her dark hair, her bright eyes sparkling as she smiled and said, "I awakened yesterday. I'll probably be going to the Imperial Capital Sequencer Academy next." "Which academy are you headed to?" I lifted my gaze slightly. Truth be told, I'd already noticed the faint aura around her head. Even if she hadn't mentioned it, I would have known she'd awakened. And I understood exactly why she'd come here today. I replied indifferently, "Your enrollment at the Imperial Academy has nothing to do with me. I haven't awakened yet, and even if I do, there's no guarantee I could enter the Imperial Academy. This world values both talent and strength. I understand that. The gap between you and me is too glaring. Just give up." I naturally knew about the Imperial Capital Academy. Teacher, you used it daily to motivate students. In my eyes, it was simply the best institution in the country. The girl smiled faintly, her crimson lips curling slightly in unconcern. Her dazzling gaze lingered on me for a few seconds before she said, "It's fine. Even if you can't get in, I'll go wherever you go." I fell silent. I couldn't comprehend what sins I'd committed in a past life. Though others might see her as an unattainable goddess, to me she was perhaps just a passing stranger. This world is profoundly unequal. Power, influence, capability, strength. I possessed none of them. As for matters of the heart, I had no desire to engage. Moreover, I understood the chasm between us. She was the young princess of the Kanglin family in the imperial capital, future helmsman of the Kanglin legacy. The gulf separating us was vast. That's precisely why I wanted no entanglement whatsoever. I turned my head to look at the bright sky outside the window. She didn't speak again, silently retreating, yet a fleeting crimson glint seemed to pass through her eyes as she murmured softly, "You're mine." Soon, the class bell rang. Suja returned with a large bump on his head, his expression oddly excited, and whispered, "Brother Chen, I just got some major news today. The special zodiac teams are coming to our academy to maintain order. It seems they're here to ensure we survive this awakening ceremony safely." The zodiac teams? I was startled. I never expected the incident in Demon City to alarm even the special forces. Could it really be as I suspected, that the cult is targeting us students? The Zodiac consists of 12 teams, each composed of 7 members. No matter which city they visit, they always wear masks. If you see strangely dressed people wearing masks of the 12 Zodiac animals, don't panic, they're the heroes who protect humanity. I overheard someone beside me exclaim excitedly, "Yes, I heard it's the Chunlong squad, the strongest among the 12 Zodiac teams." I was absolutely thrilled when I found out. Another person chimed in, "Shenlong Squad, the most powerful team in our country." The speaker, Suja, looked unusually excited, as if preparing to showcase his skills later at the awakening ceremony, perhaps hoping to catch the Shenlong Squad's attention. The Shenlong Squad? A flicker of recollection seemed to pass through my eyes, but I quickly snapped back to reality. Maybe they're just passing by our academy, I thought, stopping briefly to guard us students during our awakening. After all, elite squads like theirs must be swamped with missions daily. That they might spare time to oversee the ceremony, well, it's best not to get my hopes up. And anyway, it's just a rumor, who knows if they'll even show? At that moment, a series of tap-tap-tap footsteps sounded as cleanly dressed teacher Yu walked into the classroom. He seemed particularly solemn today because of the awakening day, even wearing a new suit with hair slicked back using gel. Perhaps intending to impress some female teacher. After he entered, the entire class quieted down. Ahem, ahem. Teacher Yu cleared his throat. "I won't waste words. You should have all received the notice by now. The awakening ceremony will begin shortly. Whether you become exceptional individuals or remain ordinary will be determined in just a little while. But I genuinely hope more of you become ordinary people. At least then you won't have to bathe in blood on battlefields, guarding border passes against monsters emerging from the black mist. Perhaps some of you look up to those high-ranking sequence holders, or awaken exceptional talents, seeking highly lucrative jobs, or becoming those who protect and prosper humanity. But whether things go as you wish, or if you should temper your expectations, remember that outcomes, good or bad, are predestined. Don't let your abilities disrupt your life or state of mind." He spoke rapidly, though the group was accustomed to it. With a wave, he signaled everyone to follow him out of the classroom. The academy was vast, and soon our group of students arrived at a packed circular football field. Many parents were barred from entering and had to wait outside. Our line had stretched far into the distance, because it wasn't just our class waiting for awakening, there were many other classes too. "Bro Chen, I'm so nervous." Suja's face was slightly flushed, his eyes betraying a touch of panic mixed with mostly excitement. Unlike him, my expression remained unchanged, though my clenched fists gave me away. Life stood before us now. Whether we would live our lives to the fullest or spend them in quiet submission all depended on this moment. Actually, we were handling it better than most. Many classes who had completed their awakening were exiting through the side door, and quite a few students wore terrible expressions. Some already had tears welling in their eyes. These were the ones who hadn't awakened. Such was the way of this world, brutally harsh, yet perfectly fair. Suja touched the still swollen bump on his head with a hint of fear in his expression. "Bro Chen, you don't think I'll really awaken as a glutton, do you? I don't want to taste my dad's loving iron fist again," he said. I simply watched the rapidly advancing line in silence, offering no response. Chapter 5, Void and Doubts. Our class line soon reached the entrance. For some reason, today's awakening ceremony was extraordinarily extravagant. Numerous agents from the Special Operations Bureau stood ready at the door, holding various modified firearms at the ready. Those firearms were specifically designed to deal with sequences, their power immense, capable of obliterating an entire building with a single shot. My gaze swept over the personnel from the Special Affairs Bureau, and I noticed every one of them had a faint, drifting black aura hovering above their heads. These individuals were all sequences. Frowning, I muttered to myself, "This is strange. It was never this extreme in previous years. Is today some kind of cult attack, or are they protecting something?" Beside me, Suja tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "Teacher Yu is about to speak. Listen carefully, or we'll be completely lost when we go in." I gave a slight nod and turned to look. There stood Teacher Yu, clad in a suit, his expression stern as he addressed us in an even tone. "Once the previous class comes out, you will enter one by one. Someone will guide you to the awakening site once you enter. Of course, don't wander off or let curiosity get the better of you, otherwise, the opportunity you spent over a decade waiting for will vanish completely. All awakened students, step forward now and retreat to the back door for registration and waiting. I won't be accompanying you inside, but I'll be waiting with them at the back door for your return. Best wishes to everyone for a successful awakening." As his words ended, the back door swung open, and a large group of students filed out, some excited, some grieving, and even some laughing through tears. After a brief glance, I quietly stepped through the newly opened black gate. Darkness dominated almost everything inside, isolating the space completely. I simply followed the procession forward, illuminated only by the flickering green and red lights of the security gate. Next to each security checkpoint stood a person wearing a white mask, holding a black device to check if we were carrying any weapons. Beep beep beep, the sounds of security checks rang out one after another, followed by a deep voice near my ear. Go in, good luck. Keep moving forward, don't stop. I followed the person's words, unable to see the path in the darkness. With no choice but to rely on instinct, I closed my eyes and pressed forward. Soon, I sensed a faint oppressive aura, similar to what I had felt in that dream, though much less intense. Suddenly, I opened my eyes and looked ahead, for my hand had touched something solid and utterly pitch-black boulder standing in this darkness. Had I not felt it, I would have nearly bumped right into it. The source of that intimidating aura earlier must have been this very boulder. I could sense that this oppressive energy felt strangely familiar. Nonetheless, remembering teacher Yu's instructions from class, I figured simply placing my hand on the boulder should suffice. Gently, I pressed my palm against the boulder. A faint glow began to emanate from its surface, only to quickly dim again. Still, I didn't let go. For now I could no longer hear any sounds from the outside world. My consciousness had already sunk into darkness, feeling utterly ethereal and weightless. I opened my eyes and, sure enough, found myself again in the place from my dream yesterday. Still the same 7 suspended staircases, yet now vastly different. Their closed gates were trembling intensely, particularly a blood-red gate that shook violently, as if something was struggling to break free. Suddenly, a white mist emanated from the already opened gate, calming the tumultuous trembling of the others. Pinpoints of light bloomed on the white gate within the darkness, spreading all the way to one end that suddenly erupted in incomparable radiance, illuminating the entire path brilliantly. I was utterly amazed by what I saw. It was all so unbelievable. Yet in my mind, a thought lingered. Could it be that all sequence practitioners must come to this place? I gazed at the flickering light deep within the darkness, and this time I saw it clearly, a shattered throne floating in the void, as if emitting its final radiance. The aura emanating from that white gate seemed to call out to me. I lifted my foot, hesitated for a few seconds, then stepped onto the snow-white staircase. At that moment, my mind was utterly lucid. I could even feel the oppressive energy from the steps pressing down on my shoulders, trying to crush me completely. But I understood that if I wanted to become a sequence holder, this path might be unavoidable. And in my contemplation, I even speculated that the farther I walked, the better my abilities might awaken. In the silence, crisp footsteps kept echoing. Each step required my utmost effort to move forward. I don't know how long it took, but large beads of sweat rolled down my forehead. How many steps had I climbed? Maybe 10, perhaps 100. Everything was unclear. My legs had long lost their strength, and were it not for the faint white energy flowing into my body, providing me with that sliver of power, I would have collapsed long ago. But I refused to fall, because I knew that only by awakening powerful abilities could I at least avoid sleeping in that blackout-plagued house every day. I tried to kneel on one knee on the steps, but a force wouldn't allow me to bend. I could only force my body to stay upright, my eyes filled with unwillingness as I gazed up at the distant yet seemingly close shattered throne. I thought to myself, is this as far as I can go? With difficulty, I turned to look at the steps I had already crossed, my expression incredibly complex. Even I didn't understand how I had managed to come this far, from barely 2 steps yesterday to who knows how many steps today. Perhaps this is as far as I can go. My strength has long been exhausted, and the oppressive weight bearing down on my shoulders grows heavier by the moment. As if sensing my despair, an illusory door suddenly swung open before me. A milky white sphere shot through the portal and into my body in an instant before the door vanished just as quickly. Feeling the sudden surge of power within me, my eyes widened in shock. What is this? It seemed I had awakened, but to what ability? I was utterly bewildered. Without warning, a wave of dizziness hit me. My consciousness began to fade as everything around me dissolved, until with a loud thud, I collided with that same black monolith from before. At this moment, the black boulder was as if washed by white light, radiating a dazzling brilliance, with a large letter S carved upon it. Yet it showed no signs of what ability I had awakened, and I could no longer hold on, my body overwhelmed by waves of exhaustion. As I collapsed, my mind still lingered on one thought: why had everyone else been lively and energetic after awakening, while I felt as though I'd just fought a brutal battle, utterly drained of strength? Slowly, I closed my eyes, knowing there was no real danger in passing out here. Today, after all, there were plenty of agents monitoring the area, undoubtedly equipped with devices both to oversee us students for safety and to guard against potential threats. As I fell, the boulder's glow began to fade, and everything seemed to return to its original state. In the darkness, a shadowy figure flashed by, swiftly carrying me away. The back entrance was crowded with students. Teacher Yu's expression remained unchanged, having witnessed many high-achieving students lose their chance to compete with others due to a single awakening. This was the moment that could change destinies. He chose to remain silent, watching the still swinging back door, anticipating the next student who would emerge. With a bang, the back door shook as if struck, and Suja's chubby figure burst out. His flushed, glowing face emerged first, his eyes seemingly searching for someone before finally settling on Teacher Yu. He shouted loudly, "Teacher Yu, where's Chen Ge?" Teacher Yu could tell he had awakened but was puzzled why his first thought was to look for me. Could he have awakened some remarkable ability? Li Chen hasn't come out yet. Go register first. Otherwise, if the Special Affairs Bureau takes you away, I won't be able to save you. After registering, Suja was unusually excited. He never expected to awaken another ability. He had thought being a foodie would be enough, but now things were different. He had been waiting to show off after emerging, but then he noticed his classmates had split into two groups. He found it strange. Had they quarreled and fallen out? Teacher Yu smiled and asked him, "Suja, what ability did you awaken?" Suja grinned and pointed at his belly. Teacher Yu hesitated before asking, Your stomach? Suja patted his belly and said cheerfully, "I awakened a B-grade ability called Stronger by Eating. As long as I eat, my body's strength keeps growing." Clearly, he was very fond of this awakened ability. Teacher Yu gave him a strange look and slowly said, Not bad. At least not bad for you. Developed well, you might even become an official like your father, just for fun. Since you've awakened your ability, which academy are you planning to apply to? The Imperial Capital Academy or somewhere else?" Suja replied without hesitation, "I'll follow Chen Ji's lead. Wherever he goes, I'll apply there. After all, we've been in the same academy since childhood. How could I possibly change that easily? Loyalty is engraved on my back, and I won't alter a single word of it." I don't know how much time had passed when nearly all the students from our class had come out. Then, a man wearing a dragon mask carried me out of the awakening chamber. His voice was hoarse, as if deliberately disguising it to prevent recognition, and he said, "Register this student with a B-grade ability and send him straight to the infirmary. As for the ability details, just write it down as simple energy control." He passed out during the awakening process inside. Suja happily trotted over, a flicker of admiration flashing through his eyes. But reason prevailed as he took me and immediately dashed toward the infirmary. He knew the man before him was among the strongest in the nation, the Chenlong squad he had long idolized, but with me unconscious, he couldn't prioritize his fandom over me. Suja carried me on his back. We were roughly the same height, though I was just a tad taller, mostly because he'd been growing more horizontally than vertically. He muttered under his breath, Brother Chen, you better treat me to extra buns later, or it wouldn't be fair after I carried you all the way to the infirmary like this." While logging my details, Instructor Yu noticed something was off. Why would someone pass out during awakening inside? That hadn't happened in previous years. He asked the masked man, "Chenlong squad?" The man responded with a grunt. Teacher Yu frowned and asked, "I don't know how my student ended up unconscious inside. Awakening shouldn't cause unconsciousness?" The man chose to remain silent. He wasn't clear about the situation either, having only received a summons to bring me out, and even his abilities were dictated to him through the earpiece. Teacher Yu didn't press further. After all, they weren't on the same level. The two remained silent, watching as the students emerged one after another. Soon nearly everyone had come out. Teacher Yu observed the two small groups and said, "It seems you all already understand clearly the path that lies ahead for you. Students who have successfully awakened, come to the academy tomorrow to choose which college you will attend. Those who haven't awakened yet should attend classes as usual tomorrow. As for any other questions you may have, you can come to my office and I'll answer them for you. Remember, your journey has just begun. Don't give up easily." Alright, that's all for today. Everyone, go home now. Share this good news with your parents. The students dispersed in excitement, some elated, others crestfallen. Teacher Yu sighed and prepared to head to the infirmary to report the situation when, suddenly, a flicker of surprise flashed in his eyes. In an instant, his figure vanished. Then, a deafening explosion echoed from the awakening chamber, sending flames soaring into the sky. Some parents at the main gate fled in panic, while others stood frozen in place. Among them, an elderly man dressed in tattered clothes erupted with an aura of sharp resolve, determined to seek justice for the children trapped inside. At this moment, Dean Gu Xingyun of the academy patted his shoulder, and Jian Wuqing's killing intent dissipated significantly upon recognizing him. Gu Xingyun chuckled, "You old geezer Jian Wuqing, aren't you afraid your sword strike might split my academy in half? And then you wouldn't be able to afford the damages." Jian Wuqing snorted coldly, "Then why aren't you sending someone to rescue my precious disciple?" Gu Xingyun replied smugly, "Rest assured, your treasured disciple is fine. The new generation is protecting them right now." Chapter 7, Imperial Capital in Kanglan. I slowly opened my eyes in the infirmary, awakened by the tremendous explosion. What happened? Rubbing my forehead, I looked around and realized I was in the academy's infirmary, my last memory being the moment I collapsed before the awakening stone. With a click, the door was pushed open, and Professor Yu walked in. Before I could ask about the situation outside, he said gravely, "Lycan, just stay here. There's an attack by cultists outside. It's not safe." Cultists? The Special Bureau? I was baffled. How had a battle broken out while I was unconscious? I thought of Suzhou and asked, Professor Yu, where's Suzhou? Is he okay? Professor Yu fell silent for a few seconds, then tugged at his black tie and said, after Suzhou brought you to the infirmary, he probably went to find his father. You'd better stay here. I knew I couldn't join the fight outside, having just awakened my abilities. I hadn't even mastered them yet. Going out would only cause trouble. I asked again, Professor Yu, aren't you going to help the Special Bureau agents? Teacher Yu sat on the chair, took a sip of water, his expression stiff as he said helplessly, I'm just a teacher, I don't have much combat ability. I fell silent, staring at the aura floating above his head. My mind was full of doubts. I could clearly see Teacher Yu possessed combat skills, yet he was here guarding me. It was too unusual. Could it be because of my S-rank talent? Probably not. Speaking of talents, I suddenly realized I still didn't know what ability I'd awakened. According to classroom teachings, one should receive an ability analysis in their mind after awakening, but I hadn't. I felt like I could alter whatever I touched, but with Teacher Yu present, I couldn't experiment properly. Teacher Yu broke the silence asking, Li Chen, have you thought about where to go next? I shook my head. Honestly, I wasn't sure. After awakening, I might go to a strange city to study or work, or perhaps just remain an ordinary person. I don't want to end up like my parents, guarding against the dark mist at the border, dying there for honor. Noticing my confusion, Teacher Yu smiled and said, life is like this, too many choices bring chaos. You're still young, you'll find your path eventually. After awakening as a sequence practitioner, you'll have many options. You could join the Special Tasks Bureau as an agent. Even catching prostitution cases would pay better than ordinary jobs. I smiled bitterly and said, Teacher Yu, I'm only 16. I can't possibly become a secret agent yet. Teacher Yu gave an awkward laugh and changed the subject. Have you decided which academy you want to attend? I'd recommend the Imperial Capital Academy. Suddenly, he remembered that my talent level seemed to be B grade and hastily corrected himself. Well, the Kanglan Academy is also quite good. I fell deep into thought. I knew both the Imperial Capital Academy and Kanglan Academy trained newly awakened students, and the two were rivals. The Imperial Capital Academy always ranked first, something Teacher Yu constantly emphasized in class. I wondered why he changed his recommendation so abruptly. Could it be that my S-grade talent wasn't good enough for the Imperial Capital Academy? At that moment, the door opened, and Suzhou walked in with a large bump on his head, followed by a tall man with an intimidating presence. But I knew it was Suzhou's dad, so I wasn't alarmed. Sometimes I wonder how little they resemble each other, even suspecting Suzhou might not be his biological son until Suzhou showed me the paternity test report. Teacher Yu hurriedly stood up and greeted respectfully, Hello, President Su. President Su waved his hand, looked at me, and said, Shenzi, you ended up in the medical room just from awakening a power. I shook my head helplessly, understanding he was trying to lighten the mood. Teacher Yu asked, President Su, has the situation outside been resolved? President Su gave a slight nod and replied, they came searching for something but were driven away. The awakening ceremony is still ongoing, though the venue suffered considerable damage. I told this brat to go to the Imperial Capital Academy, but he refused, saying he wanted to run away with Brother Chen. With that, he gave Suzhou a sharp knock on the head. Suzhou clutched his head and shouted, Suzhou, would rather jump off here today than go to the Imperial Capital Academy. If Brother Chen goes, I'll jump. Thud. Watching this heartwarming scene, the corners of my lips curled up. Suzhou was probably going to suffer. Chapter 8, Vectors, Humanity. Professor Yu and Suzhou's dad went off to handle some matters, leaving just Suzhou and me. With a bitter expression, Suzhou asked, Brother Chen, which academy are you going to? If I don't decide soon, my dad will drag me off to the Imperial Capital Academy. I gazed out the window in silence, wrestling with my thoughts. The Imperial Capital Academy had an illustrious reputation and was the top choice for awakened students, but it only accepted those with C-rank abilities or higher, and even then, screened candidates based on their potential, eliminating many. Guessing that Suzhou's awakened ability must be formidable, I asked, what ability did you awaken? Suzhou patted his belly and laughed heartily. I awakened a B-rank talent and it's growth type 2. Just by eating high-energy food, I can boost myself. I furrowed my brows. No wonder his father wanted him to attend the Imperial Capital Academy. Growth-type talents were incredibly powerful, with virtually no upper limit. As long as his family had the means to afford ability-enhancing food, he could easily surpass his peers. With Suzhou's privileged background, he was undoubtedly destined to become a powerhouse in the future. Suzhou asked in confusion, Chenggu, what ability did you awaken? Teacher, you said you awakened a B-rank ability. I froze. Wasn't I an S-rank? Had I misread it back then? Or was the school hiding my true talent? I'm not sure either. There's no one here now, let me try. I glanced around. The infirmary was empty, so there was no risk of exposing my ability to Suzhou. Closing my eyes, I focused on summoning that power. In an instant, every object in the infirmary began to tremble. I close my eyes and can still sense the various substances and energies in the air, even gathering, erupting, and fusing them remains within my grasp. Suja widened his eyes, staring at the bedsheet moving without any wind, his lips slightly parted as he muttered to himself, "Damn, is this really a fucking B-level ability?" I abruptly opened my eyes, just in time to hear a boom. Everything in the room exploded. Glasses, windows, all instantly cracked before shattering into fragments on the ground. Vectors? I could effortlessly manipulate all energy, even transform it into other forms. This felt strikingly similar to the power I had sensed earlier, most likely my newly awakened ability. Yet something felt off. I could distinctly sense several other energies lying dormant within my body. Suja stood nearby, dumbfounded, murmuring, "Well, Dust Brother really lives up to his reputation. Looks like I'll have to rely on him to watch my back from now on." I stopped using my ability and suddenly recalled the strange space I entered when awakening my power. I turned to Suja and asked, "Bowsy, did you enter some eerie space when you awakened?" My words snapped Suja back to reality. Eerie space? He looked puzzled. What eerie space? When I awakened, I just followed Teacher Yu's instructions and touched that giant stone, then it happened. Seeing his expression, I could roughly guess the outcome and muttered to myself, could it be that I'm the only one who encountered this bizarre thing? That eerie space, along with the shattered throne at the end of darkness, plunged me into deep thought. The awakening ceremony at the academy was still ongoing. Though the recent attack by the cult organization had failed, the damage was far from insignificant. Inside one of the teaching buildings, several individuals with deep, measured breaths were engaged in conversation. Dean Gu pondered and asked, "Yu Qingyan, are the students in your class all right?" Yu Qingyan nodded slightly, glancing at the ongoing awakening ceremony below, and said, "Dean, why would the cult suddenly target our small academy today? What could possibly attract them here?" Dean Gu waved his hand dismissively, his expression calm. The cult organization is nothing but a clown. Their actions are always baffling, no one ever knows what they're really after. Pure attention seeking, that's all. Just then, a cold snort came from behind. The elder who had remained silent until now gripped his cane and angrily cursed, "Damn those cult bastards. They almost disrupted my grandson's awakening. One of these days, I'll cut down that worthless cult with my blade." Yu Qingyan's pupils slightly contracted. He knew this elder who stood so close to the dean couldn't be ordinary. Upon hearing the old man's words, a figure suddenly surfaced in his mind. Dean Gu noticed his shock and said with a smile, "Old man Jian, restrain your aura, you're scaring my staff." Yu Qingyan immediately regained composure and said respectfully, "This junior pays respects to Elder Jian." Old man Jian resumed his usual demeanor, withdrawing his formidable aura until he appeared like an ordinary elderly man again. The previous outburst had merely been due to overwhelming fury. "So you must be Yu Qingyan," said Sword Elder. "Indeed young. Not bad at all." Yu Qingyan dared not accept such praise, silently retreating to stand beside Dean Gu. The formidable reputation of Sword Elder had long preceded him. Unbothered, Sword Elder chuckled heartily, his sharp eyes flicking a glance toward Dean Gu. Paying no mind to their exchange, Dean Gu said, "Yu Qingyan, I intend to transfer you to Kanglin Academy. The atmosphere there has deteriorated, I want you to rectify it." "Ha?" Yu Qingyan frowned, speaking incredulously, "I feel quite comfortable here. Why would I suddenly be sent to Kanglin?" He could tell the dean's words were just an excuse, but he didn't understand the reason behind it. Dean Gu gazed at the sky and said slowly, "Turbulent times are coming, and humanity is too divided. The Imperial Capital Academy and Kanglin Academy squabble endlessly over those meaningless rankings, how disgraceful. The weird pavilion at the border can barely withstand the pressure anymore. The legacy of the new generation must not be lost in our hands. We need someone capable of carrying the heavy burdens. It's time to clean up the current environment. Humanity's fighting spirit has been dulled by complacency." Yu Qingyan fell silent. He had spent years here and witnessed much. Humans today had grown too comfortable. The fearless stronghold at the border kept monsters from invading the safe cities, allowing many to become slaves to wealth and power. They believed money and authority could secure them a good life, oblivious to those who bore the weight for them. "All right." Yu Qingyan nodded and agreed. Dean Gu smiled and turned to Old Man Jian, saying, "Old Man Jian, why don't you send your grandson to the Kanglin Academy for some quiet cultivation? It should have quite good results. The Imperial Capital Academy is currently too domineering, its status too lofty. The higher they climb, the harder they'll fall." Old Man Jian contemplated for a moment and then left, seemingly having made up his mind. After the awakening ceremony, I walked out of the infirmary. I wasn't seriously injured, just unconscious for a while, nothing major. Suja stepped on his own not-so-plump shadow and asked, "Chenggu, are we really going to Kanglin Academy?" I nodded. For me, any academy was the same. The Imperial Capital's academy was too fiercely competitive, and I wasn't keen on going there. Kanglin Academy was more relaxed, taking a hands-off approach, which suited students much better. Suja recalled, I heard things aren't peaceful at Kanglin Academy right now. Apparently, after failing in last year's Inter Academy tournament with the Imperial Capital's elites, the whole place has gone into a slump. Oh, how do you know all this? I was a bit puzzled. In my eyes, Suja was just a lazy, gluttonous little fatty who spent his days either sleeping or slacking off. It was quite surprising to see him suddenly take an interest in other matters. Suja replied calmly, it's to deal with my dad. I specifically looked up this info so I'd have something to talk about with the old man when I get back. Otherwise, I'll get another beating. He wasn't lying. To get into the same academy as me, he'd put in way more effort than usual. Slacking off? I pondered for a few seconds but didn't dwell on it too much. We hadn't even entered the academy yet, thinking too far ahead was pointless. I simply responded to Suja, well, good luck with that. Suja was speechless. Soon, we parted ways at a fork in the road. Watching the gradually setting sun, I walked alone, lost in thought, perhaps contemplating where to go from here. Kanglin Academy? Maybe. In the dimly lit meeting room, many white-masked figures sat in silence, not a word uttered. Suddenly, a man wearing a red mask stood up and said, today, a cult attacked an academy in Demon City, but the Qianlong squad stopped them, preventing major casualties. However, they seemed to be acting on the spur of the moment without much preparation, and we even captured a cult member who didn't escape in time. He paused before continuing, but the cult member, realizing he couldn't escape, detonated himself, injuring several officers. If anyone has thoughts, feel free to share your opinions. Yet no one answered, since no one understood the cult's motives. The man in the red mask fell silent once more. After a moment of silence, a clear female voice spoke up, Chief, perhaps there's something that attracted the cultists, but they just didn't succeed. They attacked the Academy's awakening chamber. It might be an object or possibly a person. According to a member of the Qianlong squad, they barely fought with the cultists at all. The cultists simply blasted a huge hole in one side of the awakening chamber, and that area only contained an awakening stone, nothing else. Listening to the woman's words, I, acting as the meeting's chief, contemplated for a moment before murmuring gravely to myself, could they have done all this just for an awakening stone? But I quickly dismissed this thought. Awakening stones weren't valuable, anyone with some connections could obtain one. And considering the cult organization's vast resources, if they merely wanted an awakening stone, they wouldn't have attacked the academy so brazenly. What do they want then? Could it be people? I fell into deep thought. Suddenly, my earpiece crackled with static as a message came through on my phone. I quickly retrieved it from my coat pocket. Though it was meeting hours, being the chief meant this wasn't an issue. Missing crucial intel and causing major mistakes was a responsibility I couldn't afford. The phone screen glowed dimly as my eyes widened behind the mask. The message was from Captain Qianlong. Files, S-level authority mobilized. September 7th, afternoon in Demon City. A student from Chuanhai Academy awakened with S-level talents was reportedly targeted by a cult organization for elimination. Special authorization granted to downgrade this student's talent rating to B-level. Student name, Li Chen. Read full details and immediately purge records as precautionary measure. I slowly formatted and deleted the documents, and even reset my phone to factory settings, all to protect the files from being seen by others, but more importantly, to safeguard that student named Li Chen. It seems there's no need to investigate further, though it's been a long time since someone with an S-level awakened talent appeared. After returning home, I felt restless and emotionally conflicted, partly because my belongings were pitifully few. I glanced at the clock on the wall, debating whether to take it with me, but ultimately shook my head. My gaze then settled on the framed photo by the bed. The photo showed 3 people, my younger self and my parents, though their faces had been torn away. I picked up the frame gently, took one brief look, and set it back down. Perhaps I had almost forgotten what my parents even looked like. Since I can remember, I've never had parents. Before, I didn't understand what they were busy with every day and even complained they didn't spend time with me. Until one day, I received 2 urns and realized I had become an orphan. Yet I wasn't crushed. That day, I just sat silently by the bed, gazing at the red moon outside the window, staring all night until the sun rose. I still don't understand why I wasn't sorrowful. I couldn't even cry. Because of this, many people learned about my situation and called me a heartless little bastard, but I couldn't have cared less about them. At the time, Suja's father took me to the hospital for a checkup, worried that the shock had driven me insane, but the results showed I was perfectly healthy, even stronger than my peers. Only the doctor gave me a complicated look and said, "This kid will probably have a hard time finding a girlfriend. He's congenitally devoid of emotions." It was precisely because of these experiences that I became the quiet type you see today. Lying in bed, I reminisced about these 16 fleeting years of memories. Life without parents was never easy. Sometimes it was only by relying on Suja stealing money from his dad that I could barely scrape by, avoiding the plight of missing all 3 meals a day. Whatever, life will gradually get better. A gentle breeze drifted in from the old balcony, and with these thoughts in mind, I slowly drifted off to sleep. Chapter 10, Radicalism and Laziness. The bright sunshine poured into the spacious Chuanhai Academy, where I had arrived early. Yet the campus seemed strangely deserted, with few students in sight. A flicker of doubt crossed my mind. Had I come too late? Just then, a voice came from behind. I turned around to see Teacher Yu standing there, holding a tote bag in one hand and leisurely sipping a cup of soy milk with the other. He seemed surprised to see me and joked, "What's gotten into you today? Actually showing up this early?" Without the usual sternness he displayed at school, Teacher Yu seemed as amiable as chatting with a friend. I replied, "Yes, I came early today, no tardiness." Teacher Yu smiled and said, "Indeed, you're not late, what a rare sight. There won't be another chance in the future. Have you decided which academy to attend?" In his opinion, the Imperial Capital Academy was the better choice. It was a competitive institution, and only through competition could outstanding students be nurtured. Though he might later become its adversary, that didn't stop him from advising students to enroll there. After thinking for a few seconds, I replied, "Me? I think I'll go to Kanglin." Kanglin? Teacher Yu was surprised. He hadn't expected me to choose Kanglin. Was it because my awakened talent wasn't good enough? He quickly reassured me, "Kanglin isn't bad either, at least the pressure isn't as intense as at the Imperial Academy." I nodded silently. Of course I knew he was just trying to comfort me. Teachers always see right through us students. But I have an S-rank talent, doesn't he know that? Though Kanglin Academy ranks second nationwide, their admissions policy is far more lenient, accepting nearly anyone with awakened talent regardless of ability. It serves as a lifeline for students with weaker talents or subpar awakened abilities. That's precisely why the strength among sequencers in the academy is unbalanced, earning it the nickname Eternal Runner-Up. We walked silently across the campus, each lost in our thoughts. I was preparing to transfer to another academy, while Instructor Yu pondered how to whip the new students of Kanglin Academy into shape. Breaking the silence, Instructor Yu suddenly remembered yesterday's awakening incident and asked me, "You fainted in the awakening chamber, did something strange happen during your awakening?" After all, people normally don't lose consciousness during awakenings. This is the first time I've seen such a case. I'm rather curious about it. I frowned and said, "Passing out was just an accident, probably because the awakening power was too strong." Teacher Yu, have you heard of Vector? Vector? Teacher Yu suddenly thought of a certain code name on a ranking list but couldn't quite believe it, especially since I'd been listed as B rank back then. I nodded and continued, "I can manipulate any form of energy, altering its trajectory and state." With that, I raised my hand and released a gust of wind, sending the fallen leaves swirling everywhere. With such a short awakening time, I can already achieve this much. Once I fully master this power, perhaps I won't even need to lift a finger to form an invisible aura. Teacher Yu stared at me in shock, instantly realizing there was no way this could be a mere B-rank ability. He suddenly remembered how the Chunlong squad had labeled me as B-rank yesterday. Now everything made sense, and countless connections clicked into place in his mind. With a grave expression, he said, "Yesterday I didn't know your ability was S-rank, so I recorded it as B-rank. I can correct it now, but there are both advantages and disadvantages. People often say most geniuses die young, and usually by human hands. This has happened countless times. I'm giving you a choice: appear before the public with your S-rank ability, or conceal your power and wait for the right opportunity. The academy you selected can also be changed. Appearing before the public means exposure to all of humanity, and S-rank ability emerging would cause massive waves in human society." Teacher Yu spoke bluntly, "Given the strength of my ability, I shouldn't waste talent at Kanglin Academy. The Imperial Capital Academy would be better suited." I fell silent. I understood the potency of my ability. He wasn't wrong. A genius appearing in the public eye before reaching full maturity often meets an early demise, as countless bloody realities have proven. After a few seconds of contemplation, I spoke resolutely, "Professor Yu, there's no need to reverse my abilities. You said in class before that what makes geniuses special is their innate talent. Since I've chosen Kanglin, I won't change my mind. Besides, I don't particularly like the atmosphere at the Imperial Academy." Professor Yu was about to say more when I waved him off. "Isn't every academy just an academy? There's no real difference between good and bad, right? The teaching methods are essentially the same, one being more aggressive, the other more lax. And after all, I have the right to choose my own path in life." My words left Teacher Yu deep in thought. He wasn't wrong. All academies were fundamentally the same institutions with similar teaching methodologies. It was merely the people within them that dictated alternative approaches to education. This was precisely why Dean Gu had tasked him with reforming the Kanglin Academy to alter its current prevailing atmosphere. Teacher Yu smiled faintly and said, "Since you've made this choice, I won't try to dissuade you further. After all, your path isn't mine to walk." It seems my judgment was lacking. I never expected you to awaken an S-class ability. For him, being a teacher meant guiding students toward the right path, yet he couldn't forcibly change anyone's mindset. Before we knew it, we had arrived at the teaching building, and our conversation naturally came to an end. After all, one was a student, and the other a teacher. We still had our own matters to attend to, Soon, nearly all awakened students had gathered at the academy, though today they were there only to say their goodbyes. I sat by the window in my usual spot, lost in thought, when Suja's voice suddenly sounded beside me. He stood before me holding a large bag of steamed buns and teased, "Brother Chen, why have you been coming so early these days? I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me." I smiled in response, glancing at the top of his head. His aura had grown significantly, much denser than when he first awakened yesterday. Truly impressive, the talent of growing stronger through eating was undeniably fearsome in its potential. Suja handed over a bun and whispered, "Brother Chen, want some? Monster meat filling. My dad had the housekeeper make these. You know monster meat is crazy expensive right now." As he spoke, he cautiously glanced around, afraid someone might snatch his bun. Monster meat filling? I was startled, but considering Suja's family background, my doubts quickly faded. Monsters emerged from the black fog beyond the border, mindless creatures that only charged toward human settlements, desperate to consume every last person. Naturally, some monsters were edible, but these creatures were incredibly hard to capture, and even preserving their meat was difficult. The border was too far away. Even sequence users with awakened spatial abilities struggled to transport monster meat intact back to the country, let alone enjoy buns stuffed with it. Suja watched me hesitating to take a bite and urged, "Chen-good, eat it. This is super nourishing. It's because I ate this that my physical strength improved." Class, today is your last lesson at Chuanhai Academy, and this will be your final class here. After this, you will all embark on your new lives. Perhaps once you leave Chuanhai, you'll rise to great heights, or maybe, teacher, you kept preaching from the podium, while the students below brimmed with fighting spirit. I gazed out the window, lost in thought. Moments later, everyone held 3 forms in their hands. Among them were admission notices for the Imperial Capital and Kanglan Academies, and the third was a social enrollment form. With these 3 forms, they could choose which academy to attend, provided their awakened talents met the prerequisites. At this point, teacher, you spoke again. You also have the option not to transfer to any college and choose to continue studying at Chuanhai College until you graduate before making your decision. Of course, I wouldn't recommend that. The best age for learning, between 16 and 18, is prime time. Don't end up regretting your choices later. Once you've made your choice, you can take the form and leave for the college you've selected to begin your new studies. You've graduated. I took one last glance at teacher Yu, called out to Suja, and walked out of the classroom. Most of the students had already decided where they were going and barely lingered. On the college pathways, many students were bidding farewell to each other, while others excitedly discussed which departments they were headed to next. Gazing at the sea of people crowding the school gate, I couldn't help but ask in resignation, "Suja, isn't your dad coming to pick you up?" "Well, if he comes, he might as well take me along." Suja stood on tiptoe, scanning the surroundings briefly. Not spotting his family car, he added, "Looks like he's not coming. That busy man must be off enjoying himself somewhere again. Should we head straight home to grab our luggage, or just go directly?" "Ha, go directly? Don't you have any luggage?" I was puzzled. I'd already dragged my luggage out, and the small rented place was cancelled today after discussing with the landlord, though some deposit remained. With a roguish grin, Suja said mischievously, "Ha, Brother Chen, I'll be straight with you, my family owns property in practically every city. If it weren't for my studies in Shanghai, my dad wouldn't even bother staying here for a single day. My luggage and stuff were shipped to Kanglan long ago, and now I'm afraid even my information has been registered." I fell silent. Perhaps this is what makes families different. After a moment's silence, carrying my luggage in hand, I took one last glance at the crowd around us before Suja and I chose to leave via the side path. The sound of the train engine roared incessantly outside the window as the fast-moving green train sped forward. With a bitter expression, Suja asked, "Shinji, why didn't we take a plane or a high-speed train? This is so uncomfortable. This tiny old green train." I responded helplessly, "Broke. I was already strapped for cash, not even sure if I'd have a place to stay after this train ride. How could I afford high-speed rail or a plane ticket?" Suja forced a bitter smile. "Bro Chen, if you just said so earlier, I'd have asked my dad to wire a check straight away. There's one thing I'll never lack, and that's money." I lowered my head. I could have taken Suja up on his offer to reach the academy quickly, but on second thought, I didn't want to trouble his father again. Always relying on others wasn't good. Money issues should be handled myself when possible, lest I become an unwelcome burden. The real hardship fell on Suja. His slightly bulky frame made squeezing into the seat pure misery. Watching the scenery flash by, it would be a lie to say I didn't feel anything. After all, it was my first time traveling far from home. Back when I had no money and nothing to do, I never really had a reason to leave. But now, at long last, I could finally get out of Shenzhen and see the world. The train was packed with students. Apart from Suja's snoring, it was silent and still. After who knows how long, I caught the disdainful glances around him and gave him a sharp pinch to wake him up. So comfy." Suja rubbed his rear end. He'd woken up feeling refreshed, though his legs were a bit numb and his body ached all over. Then he turned his head and asked, "Bro Chen, are we there yet?" "Yeah, we're here." After getting off the train, Suja looked bewildered as many people were giving him strange looks. He whispered, "Brother Chen, could it be because I'm too handsome? Are they secretly crushing on me?" I didn't want to deal with this fool but still stated the truth. "You were snoring on the train. If it weren't for a girl with the ability to mute sounds, your snoring might have caused a riot." "Ha, I snore when I sleep, and it couldn't possibly be as scary as you make it out to be, Brother Chen." "A riot?" I narrowed my eyes at the sun hanging in the sky. It had taken a few hours to get from Demon City to Shenzhou. We needed to hurry and report to the academy, or we'd genuinely end up sleeping on the streets. Upon arriving at Kanglan Academy, many students had already gathered with their large and small bags, all searching for the enrollment checkpoint. The entire Kanglan was divided into two distinct areas. One side featured clearly defined modern high-rises, while the other consisted of low-rise buildings reminiscent of ancient architecture. A small river separated the two, lending an air of refined elegance. Along the riverbank stood countless commercial buildings, their shops lining the streets. Students were everywhere, and quite a few were even showing off their skills within permitted zones, drawing cheers and applause from fellow students. The moment I stepped into this place, it felt more like a fusion of a food street and an entertainment district, far from what I'd expect of an academy. Suja and I walked along, continuously amazed at the scene, as such sights were rare for us. In the city, sequence awakened individuals were strictly prohibited from using their abilities. Anyone caught doing so would face 3 days of detention at the Intelligence Bureau, along with mandatory legal warnings to read. Sujadong looked around in amazement and exclaimed, "Shingood, damn, is this really the academy? Did we mistakenly enter some fake institution?" I shared the same thought, but we hadn't gone wrong. This was indeed Kanglan Academy, though it looked completely different from what we'd seen in videos. Right now, we needed to find the registration office first. As I was watching the airships floating in the sky, a low, halting voice tinged with nervousness suddenly sounded beside us. Elder brothers, could you tell me how to get here?" I turned to see a boy dressed in a black-blue robe, clutching a large black bag with an eerie black case strapped to his back, looking at us with obvious anxiety. Who would have thought Suja, that cheeky bastard, would be mistaken for an elder brother barely after arriving at the academy? The young man seemed a bit nervous and stammered softly, "Senior brothers, could you take me to the freshman registration area?" Since I was lost myself, I just pointed to the suitcase beside me to indicate that I was also a freshman. The boy then turned to Suja, figuring that since Suja wasn't carrying any luggage, he might actually pass as an upperclassman, but the truth was quite the opposite. Suja grinned and said, "Since you called me senior brother, I must guide you to the right spot." Then he added in a whisper, "Though I don't know where it is either." I thumped him lightly on the head and calmly remarked, "Let's just pretend he never said that. We're both new too and haven't found the registration area yet. How about we walk there together?" The youth hesitated for a few seconds before nodding in agreement. On the way, Suja couldn't sit still and said, "Hey, Brother Chen, why does this feel like a dream to me?" The academy was full of novel things everywhere. Senior students were demonstrating their abilities, and many beautiful girls were recruiting for clubs along the paths, which got Suja all excited. I nodded secretly in acknowledgement. The academy atmosphere was indeed well crafted, attracting many new students. Holding the freshly bought takoyaki, Suja turned to the black-clad youth Jinping and asked, "Jinping, want some? It's quite delicious." Jinping responded, "Brother Su, how long until we reach the freshman district? Otherwise it might be closed by the time we get there." Suja took a bite of the meatball and joked, "We should be almost there. Look, even Brother Chen isn't worried, why should we panic?" Yet when I checked the campus map on my phone, I noticed something strange. Our route was absolutely correct, but no matter how far we walked, we never arrived. It was like walking in circles. There were quite a few students like us around, and I noticed some upperclassmen watching our struggle with amused smiles, as if enjoying a show. I pulled the two of them aside and pointed at the map, lowering my voice. "Something's off. Following the normal route, we should have arrived by now. I suspect we're trapped inside some powerful being's ability, most likely the hands of those sequence masters from Kanglan. Those upperclassmen know something but won't tell us easily." Suja stood stunned for several seconds before asking, "What should we do now? We're just newly awakened students, how can we possibly resist?" Jinping narrowed his eyes briefly, sensing his surroundings, then muttered skeptically, "This place, it must be the illusionary realm my master warned me about before I left." Suja was utterly baffled. He reached out to touch the empty air in front of him, but nothing changed. I closed both eyes, attuning myself to the energy fluctuations around us. If what Jinping said was true, then we might truly be trapped in an illusion, perhaps even our physical bodies weren't real. I possessed the ability to manipulate all forms of energy, so naturally, I could locate its focal points. Suddenly, my eyes snapped open, their pupils instantly turning pale white. With a gentle pull of my hand toward the seemingly empty space before me, a luminous white fissure tore open with a resounding crackle. I said, "Let's go." After a dizzying spin, I was the first to open my eyes and found myself lying in a room, with Suju and the already risen giant Pain beside me. I was puzzled. How could we have gone from the street to this room in an instant? Was everything just now an illusion? Just then, the TV in the room emitted a mechanical voice. Congratulations on successfully passing the entrance ceremony. Please remain in the room and wait. Entrance ceremony? Illusion? I was bewildered. When had we been pulled into this illusion, and when had we been brought here? If someone wanted to kill us, this simple illusion could have done so many times over. Suja regained consciousness and hazily looked around, muttering, "Damn, how did we end up here? Could we have been kidnapped? I don't want my life to end in bitter regret before it's even begun." Before I could gather my thoughts, Giant Pain frowned and analyzed. We must have been pulled into an illusion the moment we entered the academy. This illusion covers the entire campus, which is why we didn't notice it. Those senior students probably had something to resist the illusion. We ended up in this room maybe because we were knocked unconscious after breaking free from the illusion and then carried here by the seniors. His reasoning sounded flawless, and even Suja started clapping. But I thought his explanation had too many holes. If what he said was true, did we really figure it out just by entering the illusion? What about our physical bodies? Wouldn't they have felt something? Suddenly I recall the sequence teacher you mentioned in class. Staring out the ink-black window, I exclaimed with realization, no, there's also dreaming. It's not just illusions, dreams have joined this grand feast of rebirth too. They lured us into the institute, quietly pulled us first into illusions then dreams without anyone noticing. Our physical bodies might have been sleepwalking all along while the illusions simultaneously pressured our minds. So our bodies never left their original positions, but our consciousness was implanted into illusions. Perhaps everything we saw earlier was fake, maybe even the entire institute is an illusion. I'm doubting whether we ever truly left at all. Light flickered in my eyes as I scanned the room. Sure enough, this chamber resembled a shifting energy entity, carrying us continuously forward while our bodies remained motionless. With a clang, the black case on Jian Ping's back opened, revealing a crimson sword lying flat within, emitting waves of murderous aura. Gripping the hilt, Jian Ping said coldly, "I don't like dreams and I hate being toyed with even more." A sword beam shot into the sky, instantly cleaving the room in two, the fissure gleaming with white light. Seeing this, I gathered that elusive dream energy in my palm, letting it swirl defensively around me as I stepped toward the rupture. Chapter 13, Enrollment and Rights. Crack! A shattering sound echoed as my eyes snapped open. Everything around me remained unchanged. I hadn't returned to that room. Instead, rows of unconscious students stood frozen in place, heads bowed downward like upright zombies. Just as I thought. I looked around, none of them had moved. We were still standing at the academy's entrance. Just then, a streak of sword light shot skyward, an unintended slash from Giant Pain, who had already regained consciousness. At that moment, he looked rather pale. After all, the mental pressure from the illusion and dreamscape had left some inevitable aftereffects. Suja, meanwhile, still hadn't woken up, standing blankly beside me with his eyes tightly shut, his body twitching slightly as though chasing after someone. I turned my gaze toward the academy gates, where quite a few people had gathered. They were the same seniors I had seen in the illusion, their faces brimming with amusement as they watched us as though we were part of some spectacle. It seemed they had long been privy to the nature of this academy's initiation ceremony. Giant Pain strode to my side, his eyes no longer as clear as when we first met, now radiating waves of killing intent. I wasn't surprised and shook my head, saying, "It seems we've just been made fools of." The academy's enrollment ceremony used illusions and dreams to test our abilities and examine our temperaments. It was clearly premeditated. Those seniors went through the same ordeal, so there's no need to get angry. Who knows, we might even be stronger now than they were back then. Giant Pain let out a cold snort and turned to leave. With a sigh, I thought to myself, this academy accepts every sort of student indiscriminately, making it difficult to allocate them. This matriculation ceremony exists to filter students out, for better or worse. Starting off by intimidating us before we even begin is sure to stir up resistance and discontent among the students. As I was pondering these thoughts, Suja suddenly woke up. The moment he saw us, he shouted, "Shengu!" We ignored him. Now that everyone was awake, shouldn't we be able to leave? Surely this place couldn't still be an illusion? An aged voice drifted leisurely through the air. "These youngsters are truly formidable, truly formidable. To think you broke through 2 major illusions in just half an hour. Could it be that this year's illusion formations were set too simply?" We followed the sound and saw an elderly man with white hair slowly walking among the unconscious crowd. His body showed no signs of vitality, yet his aged face was covered in a gentle smile. Jian Ping seemed to recognize the old man and clasped his hands respectfully, saying, "Greetings, Elder Tsong." Elder Tsong chuckled playfully and replied, "Ha, Jian Ping, the proud disciple of Jian Wuching. I never expected that old man Jian would actually let you come to Kanglin Academy. Seems I underestimated him." Jian Ping humbly responded, "My master's words merely pointed me in the right direction. I simply followed my heart." "Good." Elder Tsong nodded approvingly with a hearty laugh, clearly impressed by Jian Ping. Then he turned his gaze to Su Zhu and remarked, "Even Su the madman has sent his son here now. have all of you at home discussed this? Upon hearing the term Su the Madman, Suja's expression changed. This was his father's old nickname, something he'd only learned from his dad's drunken ramblings. Song Lao smiled lightly. No need to look at me like that. Your old man once shared a drink with me. When I get the chance, I'll go have a few jars with him and see if he still has that legendary vigor. Suja remained silent. For this elder to know even his father's past nickname, he was undoubtedly someone significant. Then Sang Lao shifted his gaze toward me, his tone turning more measured. Not bad. Breaking through my illusion with pure energy is quite impressive. Keep training diligently, you might yet become a powerful sequence holder someday. I remained silent. For a brief moment, I was certain the old man had somehow examined my entire body. Though the sensation was extremely faint, I'd felt it. Sanlo looked at the three of us and smiled. Go on. The academy gates are already open. Go register, your futures are just beginning. As his words faded, he scattered like foam, dissolving into shadows before vanishing completely. Holy shit. Suja, who hadn't spoken until now, stared wide-eyed at where a person had just disappeared in an instant. Chingu, that old man's no ordinary guy. He even knew my dad's old title. I didn't even know that myself until I heard it during a drinking session. As for this old man, all I knew was that he was stronger than all of us. He must have been involved in that illusion earlier too. At this moment, Jian Pain, who had been silent all along, spoke up. Song Lao is Vice Dean Kanglan. Ha? Vice Dean? That old man? Suja gaped, seemingly shocked. Jian Pain nodded. He hadn't lied. However, we didn't elaborate on the old man's identity. There was no use knowing more. I scanned the circle of people still unconscious around us and said, we should go register now. Only then will we officially enter the academy. Academy life was about to begin. There weren't many changes within the academy grounds, and very few people around. It seemed all those scenes from the illusion earlier were fabricated. Following the map, we quickly found the registration office without any detours this time. With student IDs collected, we were officially enrolled. This student ID isn't simple, it's actually made from a smartphone containing all our information. After entering Kanglan Academy, the currency system changed too. The academy only permits purchases using the designated Kanglan academic points, and assigned living quarters are clearly marked on it. I glanced at the 1,000 academic points gifted by the academy and nodded. Seems this institution isn't too shady. I originally thought we'd have to pay tuition, but instead they're practically paying us. Suja, however, was having a harder time. The money he brought became useless. Kanglan Academy's replacement of currency with academic points actually has benefits. It levels the playing field by diminishing the advantage of wealthy students like Suja, at least within academy grounds. Bro Chen, what can these 1,000 academic points even do? I'm terrified I'll lose several pounds this month. Suja looked at the points on his academic card with tearful despair. Jian Ping and I didn't particularly mind. We glanced at the food prices, which were comparable to those outside the academy, if not slightly cheaper. But as sequence practitioners, cultivation requires considerable resources. Since academic credits could be exchanged for supplies, naturally, the more we had, the better. Competition exists in every academy. Without pressure, students would lack motivation. Chapter 14, Special Class. Time passed slowly as the sun set outside, casting a shimmering golden glow during dusk that dazzled the eyes and captivated the soul. Inside a high-tech skyscraper, two elderly figures stood gazing down at the panoramic view of Kanglan Academy. Elder Tsang's expression stiffened slightly as he spoke calmly. The matters concerning Wraith Pavilion can no longer be delayed. The Imperial Capital Academy has already dispatched their most formidable group of graduates to the border. Do we, the Kanglan Academy? Before he could finish, an elderly man nearby murmured, Kanglan Academy no longer has the capability to support Wraith Pavilion. The gap in strength has widened completely. It's no longer a matter of comparison with the Imperial Capital Academy. Even if we send these young ones to that suicidal battlefield, it would only result in unnecessary casualties. But, Elder Tsang frowned deeply. He understood Kanglan's current situation and the state of their students. That desperate battle had completely shattered Kanglan's spirit. The students had no heart for war anymore. He could only exhale slowly, falling silent. The times had changed. The only reason Kanglan hadn't been overtaken by other academies was their past glory. At this moment, the old man beside him spoke up. How was today's initiation ceremony? How many students persisted? Song Lao hesitated for a few seconds before replying. Today, only about 100 people broke through the first illusion layer, while merely 5 made it past the second. The remaining 960 all fell into complete unconsciousness. They're probably still lying on the ground counting stars right now. The old man furrowed his brows, his expression shifting as he sighed. Each year worse than the last. Last year we still had 10 breaking the second layer, yet this year only 5 remain. Heaven wills that Kanglan's curtain must fall. Song Lao chuckled at this and patted his shoulder, saying, though there are only 5 this year, these 5 show promising potential. That old fox Jian even sent his precious grandson here. Old Gu also arranged for Yu Qingyan to join us. Perhaps this year we still have hope after all. The old man seemed to have heard an unbelievable name and exclaimed in shock, Yu Qingyan? Wasn't that guy staying at the Mystic Pavilion before? In recent years, he seemed to have vanished without a trace. How could he suddenly be transferred to our place? Song Lao could only shake his head. He didn't understand Gu Xingyan's thoughts either, but it was definitely a good thing. I paused in silence, then heard the old man furrow his brow as if hesitating, yet ultimately acquiescing with a slow utterance. This time, we'll alter the assessment rules, no more of the old methods. Implement a 1-to-1 assignment system instead. Group all the talented students from this year's enrollment ceremony into a single class and assign Yu Qingyan to oversee them. After all these years, it's time for some changes. The elimination system will be activated once again. Song Lao had no objections. I understood, this might be the struggle of the Kanglin Academy. The nation isn't limited to just the Imperial Capital and Kanglin Academies. Many of the lower-ranked sequence academies are eyeing these 2 prestigious seats like hungry tigers. Perhaps we should have changed the academy's atmosphere long ago. Afterward, Suzha, Jinping, and I settled our belongings at Kanglin Academy. I had to admit, the academy was quite lively at night, with most people heading in the same direction. The destination was an ancient tower called the Star Moon Tower. The 3 of us followed the crowd there. Suzha's small eyes narrowed into slits as he looked around, whispering, Bro Chen, how about grabbing a bite first? That afternoon orientation ceremony completely drained my energy. I ignored him, frowning as I stared at the crowd of students gathering at the entrance of Star Moon Building. There must be a reason we followed them here. Who wouldn't want to collapse comfortably on their bed after surviving a whole day of exhausting enrollment procedures? Jinping wasn't nearly as socially awkward as when we first met him. He'd grown much chattier after getting familiar with us. Eyeing Star Moon Building, I said, according to the instructions on our student cards, we need to confirm our class assignments here. Classes start tomorrow. Suzha looked utterly miserable at the prospect. Studying was the last thing he wanted to do, convinced that staying in bed would be far more comfortable. Brother Chen, we just got here. Shouldn't we have an adjustment period? How come we have to start studying on the very first day? I'm not ready at all, I haven't even gotten used to the bed yet. At this point, Giant Pain said softly, I think starting classes tomorrow is great. It'll help us adapt faster. I nodded slightly. I couldn't sit idle either. Though I sometimes felt lost, I was happy to improve my skills. You guys are kind of sick, Suzha muttered under his breath. Walking into Star Moon Tower, we were all stunned. From the outside, it looked like an ancient building, but inside was like a futuristic world, projection devices everywhere, white robots moving about, and many of them explaining things to students. We quickly found the place for selecting classes, where a white robot was frantically handling the documents in front of it and didn't even notice our arrival. It wasn't until Suzha coughed that it slowly looked up. Suzha wasn't sure how to address it, calling it simply robot didn't seem right. Handsome robot, how do we choose classes? At the word handsome, the robot's eyes flashed white, startling Suzha, who feared he had said something wrong. However, it soon calmed down and emitted a gentle, gender-neutral voice in response. Suzha, your class assignment has already been selected for you. No need to choose again. If you wish to change, you must appeal to the administrator. Already selected? Suzha was stunned, suspecting his father might have chosen for him. At that moment, Jinping asked, what about me? The robot replied, Jinping, your class has also been selected, as has Li Chen beside you. You've all been assigned to the Kanglin special class. Having said that, it stared at us with vacant eyes. Special class? I was baffled. The robot's eyes emitted a faint glow as a projection emerged from the spherical center of its body. Suzha's mouth fell open as he exclaimed, high-tech. A starry projection appeared before us, displaying sliding rules one after another, including regulations like academy abilities must not be used indiscriminately. After scrolling through the rules for a while, a leaderboard-style list appeared, showing the rankings of special class members. I wondered why it was presented as a ranking list. At this moment, Suzha scratched his head and said, why is my name ranked last at 50th? Brother Chen sits at 32nd, while Giant Pain is actually 5th. This makes no sense. The robot explained, the special class operates on a leaderboard system where strength determines ranking order. Those whose abilities fall short will be removed, making way for stronger replacements. This is the unique elimination rule of the special class. After a moment's thought, I asked, does the special class receive any additional benefits? Given its name, there must be a reason. The ranking had already given me some clues. After checking the regulations, the robot said, according to Kanglin Academy's rules, special classes receive 1,000 study points monthly, enjoy a 2% discount at Sequence Loft, and receive ongoing rewards for rank advancements. As long as you remain on the list for 1 day, you are eligible to receive it. So you're saying my academic credits are only because I'm in the special class? Suja's head spun with confusion. This special class was different from the others, just the reward of academic credits alone was enough to make countless students scramble to get in. Yes, student Suja, your academic points were collectively issued by the college to the special class. The first month follows a standard of 1,000 points. The robot responded. Suja stared at his position at the bottom of the 50 name list, lost in thought. The monthly 1,000 point allowance would determine how comfortably he lived the next month, and the ranking system gave him a sense of urgency. He quickly asked, since I'm at the bottom, how can others push me off? At this moment, Suja's mind was unusually sharp when it came to matters of food. The robot replied, the elimination mechanism allows challenge matches. Students can challenge members of the special class, and the victor automatically takes their place on the list and joins the class. I nodded slightly, this was truly worthy of being called a special class. Giant Pain didn't care and kept stroking his box as if looking at his wife. Suja stood at the end of the line, the first choice for challengers among the trainees. It wasn't that he lacked confidence in his abilities, but his power simply wasn't offensive. His strength relied on continuously eating to boost his power and defense, a slow process typical of growth-type sequences. You can't become fat from a single bite. Knowing Suja's situation and how difficult it would be for him to hold his position at the end, I comforted him. Bowsy, don't worry. With these new recruits, one belly bump from you would probably knock them out. They're all rookies after all, your ability gives you an edge here. But I couldn't help adding, unless you're unlucky enough to run into someone like Giant Pain, you might end up in the hospital before the fight even starts. Suja had no comeback. Actually, when I used the sword metaphor, I guessed his identity wasn't simple. He knew about the mysterious old man we encountered upon entering the academy, and that sword strike and the illusion both made me suspicious. What a coincidence that out of all the students in the illusion, he happened to run into me and Suja. But I didn't press the matter, we're classmates, after all, and I prefer to avoid trouble. Let's go, Giant Pain, time to sleep, I said, patting Giant Pain's shoulder as he was still caressing the box. Time flew by, and soon it was the next day. Our dorm was quite nice, one living room, one bedroom, and a private kitchen. It was the standard setup for students at Kanglin Academy. I woke up early, watching the sun that hadn't yet risen. Glancing at the school notice displaying the information, classroom S603, assemble at 7:30, and then at the clock showing just 6 o'clock, I let out a sigh. Ever since awakening, I'd become like this, my energy seems endless. Waking up promptly at 6 every day, this must be the annoyance of being an early riser. At this hour, Subaozi should still be sleeping in bed, while Giant Pain was already in another room, swinging his iron sword repeatedly as part of his physical training. Suja, Giant Pain, Subaozi, and I walked into classroom S603. The room was already filled with quite a few men and women, many wearing expressions of defiance, while others sat spaced out, seemingly lost in thought. Our arrival didn't attract much attention. After all, most students in this class were top talents among the freshmen, they had their own pride, understood the rules of special classes, and viewed classmates as competitors. We casually found seats and waited for the sequence master to arrive. What sequence masters teach differs greatly from regular instructors. Suja sat beside me, pointing in a direction and whispering, Shinji, this special class doesn't seem all that special. Look at how cocky those few guys are, practically begging everyone to remember them. I glanced over but paid no further attention. Every class has its troublemakers, that's just how things go. Suddenly, Jianping looked toward the doorway in surprise and said, it's actually him. Subaozi and I also turned to look, equally shocked, because we recognized the sequence master who had arrived. With the sound of footsteps, Yu Qingyan entered the classroom, an aura of the weight of deterrence pressed upon them like a slow creeping tide. Suja widened his eyes in astonishment and exclaimed, Mr. Yu? Yu Qingyan noticed me and Suja, smiling faintly in our direction. The classroom fell silent as all eyes turned toward him. He introduced himself, good afternoon, everyone. I'll be your sequence instructor for the next 2 years. My name is Yu Qingyan. Many astute students widened their eyes in disbelief. Suja looked dazed, murmuring, it really is Teacher Yu. I too furrowed my brows, never expecting to encounter him here again. Yu Qingyan spotted Suzhou and me, probably never expecting he'd continue teaching us even after we arrived at Kanglin. After hesitating for a few seconds, he said, over the next 2 years, you'll need to understand your own abilities, learn how to deal with sequence users, and master methods to improve yourselves. When one's strength reaches a certain level, they can graduate independently, but this is extremely rare, unless someone reaches the Calamity Realm within 2 years. At this moment, a pleasant female voice asked, Instructor Yu, will we go to the Imperial Capital to participate in the Academy tournament next year, as in previous years? Yu Qingyan smiled and nodded, of course. After 1 year of study, you'll be sent to the Imperial Capital for the competition. But only the top 10 ranked students can go, which depends entirely on your own strength. I'll do my best to help improve your strength within these 2 years. As soon as he finished speaking, the classroom buzzed with excitement, which he ignored, giving the students time to ponder. After all, this was an elimination system. Whether for the special class or the academy tournament, everything depended on strength alone with no shortcuts available. Suja said bitterly, "Brother Chen, it seems this special class was set up just for the intercollegiate competition." I nodded. The special class indeed existed for the competition, and the ranking system was meant to spur the students' competitive spirit. After all, who wouldn't want to fight for a spot on the leaderboard? Giant Pain said, "If possible, I'd rather work out in my room. I have no interest in this ranking system." However, being in the top 5, he knew many challengers would inevitably come knocking. Yu Qingyan tapped the table to quiet everyone down and said, "You all understand the situation now. For the next 6 months, you'll be learning the basics of sequencers, how to control your own abilities, and the power level system." As he spoke, he took out a planet tester resembling a crystal ball, which shattered into 50 fragments that drifted into our hands. I grasped a piece. It didn't sting but emitted a magnetic pull, sticking to my arm before soon flying back to Yu Qingyan's presence. The testing planet returned to normal, with Yu Qingyan stating that the data had been saved. They would retest once a month going forward, with knowledge-based teaching in the mornings and ability training in the afternoons each day. The class ended quickly. As they walked, Giant Pain explained the ranks of the Alliance sequencers: Droplet Realm, River Gaze Realm, Withered Sea Realm, Calamity Realm. The Droplet Realm is for those who have just awakened. The higher the rank, the stronger the power. A Calamity Realm powerhouse once destroyed Linfen City in an instant, hence the name Calamity Realm. Suja asked about Giant Pain's rank, and Giant Pain admitted he was only at the Droplet Realm. He ranked in the top 5 thanks to his strong abilities, but since some people awaken naturally, they had 16 more years to harmonize with their abilities, which was why his own rank was lower. Suja felt frustrated. "I have no interest in ranking lists. I just want to be invisible." Soon it was afternoon, and the ability training began. The training ground for the special class was excellent. We weren't on campus because many students' uncontrolled abilities could cause damage to the academy. I gazed at the 8 islands floating in the air, marveling at the Kanglan Academy's ability to control a secret realm for students' cultivation. These secret realms were mysterious spaces that appeared with meteors 16 years ago. This particular one was harmless, and upon entering, I could feel an inexplicable energy being absorbed by my body, enhancing my abilities. The secret realm contained 9 islands, 8 of which had distinct environments, some scorched by blazing suns, others frozen in icy wilderness. Everyone was thrilled. The island beneath our feet was a rest area built by the academy. Yu Qingyan stood before the gates leading to the 8 islands, silently staring at them without saying a word. Every door was plastered with warning signs. It turned out that once inside, unless one used the academy-issued student badge, entry and exit were impossible. This was the Kanglan Academy's method of preventing outsiders from entering the secret realm. Suja, Jinping, and a few others sat with me on chairs, waiting. After all, the gates hadn't opened yet, and many students still hadn't arrived. Suja looked puzzled as he said, "Chengu, why do I feel like I'm not hungry anymore since coming here?" Ever since awakening his eat to grow stronger talent, he was always hungry. But now, for the first time, he actually felt full. I lifted my gaze slightly and replied calmly, "The secret realm is overflowing with energy, far more abundant than the outside world. Your body has been absorbing it without you noticing, so you aren't hungry. It's like you've eaten your fill of energy." Suja scratched his head and asked like a genius, "Damn, the air here can fill me up? Then, Chinji, do you think it'd work if I packed some of this air to take outside?" I smirked and teased, "You can try, who knows, it might work." Truthfully, I wasn't sure if the energy here could be packed and taken out. If it really worked, though, there'd be a lot of possibilities. Suddenly, a cool female voice cut in, "You guys dare to dream big. Packing air, that's a first for me." I turned to see a cute girl with a high ponytail, standing next to another girl in a light blue dress. After a few seconds of thought, I recognized them as classmates. The ponytailed girl was probably the one who asked questions in class that morning. Suja also spotted them and asked with confusion, "Is it not possible? Did you try?" The girl teased with a laugh, "You could try moving air from one place to another. Don't you think that's the kind of thing only someone a bit crazy would do?" Giant Pain, who had been silently holding his wife all along, said gloomily, "Subaozi, I think you might actually be the one with a few screws loose." Suja was utterly speechless. The girl saw us bantering with each other and walked over to me with a smile. "My name is Mingxi, and this is Luo Lin next to me. We're also students from the special class." I looked at them, somewhat puzzled, and asked, "What brings you to us?" I didn't believe they suddenly approached us just to get acquainted. The special class was full of competitive rivalries. Mingxi froze for a moment before replying softly, "We came to find you because we want to form a team. Didn't you know that after entering the secret realm, you need a small team to access those islands? Form a team?" I blinked, completely baffled. I had no idea entering the islands required teamwork. Mingxi nodded slightly and continued, "Exactly, every island is dangerous, with the harsh environment being the greatest threat. Although we'll have mentor you guiding and accompanying us inside, he won't be with us at all times. So one of the conditions for entering the island is forming a 5-person team. Right now, with me, Lolan, and the 3 of you, we've got just the right number. Otherwise, I wouldn't have approached you. I frowned, pondered for a moment, and didn't agree immediately. Instead, I looked at Giant Pain. No need to consider Zhuzha. I needed to hear Giant Pain's opinion. Giant Pain remained silent but turned to look at Zhuzha, leaving him utterly confused. He even thought he'd gotten handsomer again. Zhuzha spoke up, "No need to look at me like that. Brother Chen's thoughts are my thoughts." Giant Pain nodded as well. He disliked thinking too much. Menshi took a step forward and said with a smile, "In that case, we'll be teammates from now on, but only within the secret realm. Outside, we'll go our separate ways. How does that sound?" We all nodded in agreement. The arrangement was quite satisfactory, as forming teams was indeed troublesome. Mengshi chuckled and said, "Let me reintroduce myself. My name is Mengshi, and my ability is related to dreams. I'm Li Chen, with vector manipulation abilities," I responded. After I revealed my power, Mengshi's eyes seemed to flicker with something. Though she didn't show it outwardly clearly, she recognized this ability. Beside us, Luo Lin's expression also shifted slightly, as if she was genuinely surprised. Vector manipulation? Mengshi hesitated for a few seconds, somewhat puzzled. She was familiar with this ability but hadn't expected to encounter it right in front of her. Just then, Suzhou abruptly cut in, preening as he announced, "I'm Suzhou. You can call me the dashingly handsome man. Whatever I eat makes me stronger." His words instantly shattered the solemn atmosphere into oblivion. Luo Lin covered her mouth with a chuckle and added, "I'm Luo Lin. My ability is psychic power. Let's look out for each other from now on." Finally, everyone turned to Giant Pain. His ability was the only one still unknown. Ranked 5th overall. What kind of power could land him such a high position? I couldn't help but feel a little anticipation. Giant Pain parted his lips slightly, shifted the box onto his back, and said, "My name is Giant Pain. My ability is..." Giant Pain spoke slowly. "My ability is called Epiphany. Insight?" Suzhou looked puzzled, not understanding the meaning. Giant Pain explained, I can immerse myself in what I'm learning, enter a state of insight. For example, when I practice swordsmanship, I can enter the state, which allows me to rapidly and significantly improve my skills." I roughly understood. Simply put, insight means learning something with halved effort and doubled results. It's especially beneficial for those dedicated to a single path, like Giant Pain, who focuses solely on the sword. If this insight were given to Suzhou, its effectiveness would likely be cut by more than half. Suzhou asked doubtfully, "Honestly, your insight ability doesn't seem as impressive as my ability to grow stronger just by eating. Why is it ranked 5th? I said gloomily, "Giant Pain is nothing like you. He trains in swordsmanship, while you just eat. How can they be the same?" Indeed, in Suzhou's eyes, epiphanies weren't powerful, but abilities also depended on the user. Giant Pain also smiled and said, "Your ability to grow stronger by eating only increases your physical strength and toughness. While I focus purely on offense, they're entirely different. The rankings are based on personal strength, not natural talents. Everyone's talents differ, as does their power. Some talents may seem weak now, but when their wielders reach a certain level, things will change. Maybe I can rank 5th now simply because some people haven't fully developed their talents yet. Who knows? They might soon push me down the rankings." His words made us all nod in agreement. He was absolutely right. Just like my vector control ability might not be strong now, but once it grows, I fear no one. At this moment, Mengshi said, "The gathering time is almost up. We can head to the entrance and wait for them to open the doors." At the main entrance, all the members of the special class had arrived. Yu Qingyan gave a slight nod, brushed his fingertips past his ear, and said, "Next, you'll be entering the secret realm, but first, you must choose 4 teammates. This is your first lesson. The secret realm is full of danger. I won't be babysitting you the whole time. You'll have to rely on yourselves. This is one of the core teachings of ability training. Without danger, you'll never learn how to wield your powers." His words didn't frighten the special class students. On the contrary, they grew even more excited. Many sneered, confident in their formidable abilities and unafraid of harsh environments. Yu Qingyan took it all in without further warning. Adjusting his glasses with a flick of his nose, he said calmly, "You can use your student badges to call for help inside the secret realm. If it becomes unbearable, you may leave voluntarily. Today's class officially begins." No sooner had he spoken than groups of students hurried into one of the 8 grand gates, clearly having prepared in advance. Yu Qingyan chuckled, pulling out a small hourglass from his pocket, a faint smile playing on his lips. "This year's 8 demon isles have been revamped. They're no longer just harsh environments. Let's see how long your pride can sustain you." Our group chose one entrance and entered. Since our abilities weren't element-based and thus had no specific environmental demands, I only needed to focus on practicing my energy manipulation. The green door slowly opened as we stepped inside, accompanied by a faint, refreshing fragrance. It must be said, mystical realms are truly mystical realms, with energy far more abundant than the outside world, keeping our bodies in a constant state of saturation. In the dimly lit forest, Suja shouted in a panic, "Shinji, I just saw that tree move." The tree moved? Jinping and I turned to look but saw no signs of movement from any trees. Mingxi lifted her eyes and said, "Are you seeing things?" The Kanglin Academy archives recorded that there shouldn't be any living creatures in this realm. Suja rubbed his eyes and looked carefully at that spot. The tree hadn't moved. Could it really have been his eyes playing tricks on him? After that, none of us asked any more questions and quickly found a suitable place to start cultivating. Such a perfect environment, it would be a waste not to cultivate amidst all this abundant energy. But as we walked, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything around me seemed familiar. I could clearly sense the forest's energy swirling around me, unwilling to disperse. I began to wonder, had my vector manipulation activated on its own? Carrying this strange feeling, I continued forward until it suddenly hit me. Why couldn't I hear Suja's usual chatter? Normally, that guy could never stay quiet. I quickly turned my head, only to find an empty jungle behind me. Suju and the others had vanished without a trace. In the gloomy forest, the rustling of leaves sounded like wind chimes, but at this moment, it felt eerily terrifying. I raised a finger slightly, and instantly, a thin, colorless film enveloped my body, shielding my frail form. Something unexpected had happened in the forest. I checked my student badge, but there were no alerts. It must have been the Academy's doing. The Academy wouldn't abandon us in dire straits. This was probably just their way of testing us. But I never expected that, within mere seconds, I'd lose contact with the others. Am I some kind of isolation field? I rubbed my temples and muttered to myself. I began to wrestle with whether to wait where I was or go look for them. I wasn't even sure what was happening in this place. According to Mingxi, there shouldn't be any living creatures in this secret realm. Given how eerie things were now, the Academy probably hadn't intervened because there was no danger. But what if the Academy didn't know either? I fell deep into thought. Elsewhere, Giant Pain had also gotten separated from the others. Walking through the jungle with his case strapped to his back, his eyes were cold as he spoke indifferently, "Come out. I see you." But there was no response, only the rustling of leaves. In an instant, he drew the sword from its sheath and slashed at a tree. Surprisingly, the tree reacted like a human, its branches writhing wildly as if in pain. Ha, Su Baozi wasn't lying, these trees really do move. Jin Ping sneered, gripping his blood-red sword like a seasoned swordsman as he glared at the still shuddering tree. Chapter 19, Shackles. Lost in the shadowy forest, my eyes flickered with pale light as I scanned my surroundings carefully. Suddenly, a leafy branch overhead patted my head and handed me a few bright red fruits. These trees can actually move? I took the fruit, feeling somewhat bewildered. Earlier, I'd heard Suja shouting that the trees could move, but I hadn't expected it to be true, and now they were handing me fruit? I gripped the fruit, too hesitant to eat it, watching the swaying trees. These trees seem to be showing me kindness. Why is that? Ever since stepping onto this island, I've had this sensation, as if the entire forest radiates goodwill toward me. Could I be a child of the forest? I stared at the fruit in my hand, unsure whether I should eat it. After all, I had no way of knowing if it was poisonous. I tucked it into my pocket, thinking maybe the trees were just playing with me. Right as I was doubting myself, a 5-person squad entered the forest. A cold, arrogant girl asked her teammate Linhua, "Can you use your growth acceleration ability on these trees to speed up their development?" Linhua spoke hesitantly, "Dealy, my ability can only accelerate the growth of small things. The trees in this secret realm are more powerful than me, they don't need my help." Dealy's eyes lit up. "Oh, you can sense the energy within the trees? Pick out a few for me, let me see if I can control them." Just then, another young man spoke impatiently, "Dealy, stop wasting time. Have you forgotten why we're here? This isn't some child's game. If you want tree puppets, go find them yourself." As they argued, sudden boom sounds and eerie wails pierced the air. "Giant Pain, look at you with nothing better to do. Why did you have to go and slash that tree demon?" It was Suja's voice. He and Giant Pain were desperately running through the forest, the fat on Suja's round face jiggling non-stop as he kept glancing backward. Giant Pain, carrying a case on his back, followed while running. A trace of disdain flickered across his face as he muttered, "Ganging up on one, what kind of heroic deed is that?" But the only response he got was more howling. Behind them, several tree demons tore up from the ground in pursuit, their whip-like branches slamming against the earth with terrifying force. "Run for it, students ahead!" Suja screamed in panic, his face pale with fear as he spotted newly arrived students up ahead, but the group paid him no attention. Giant Pain murmured gloomily, "How about redirecting the tree demons' hatred onto those guys? They don't seem afraid." Suja was speechless. Then, agonized howls echoed through the forest. "That damned fat guy," cried Dealy's voice. Covered in wounds, she had clearly lost her fight with the tree demon. Before she could finish cursing Suja, a leafy branch stretched toward her, swaying mockingly by her face. "Run!" Dealy immediately shrieked. On the other side, Jinping and Suja were sitting on a large rock to rest. Brother Ping, what were you trying to do? That tree demon was just resting, and you had to slash it with your sword. Suja looked at Jin Ping with frustration, his face bitter as he spoke. Originally having been separated from me, he heard the commotion and went to investigate only to see Jin Ping fighting the tree demon. As a result, he got dragged into the battle. With his lack of combat awareness, somehow he managed to pull Jin Ping out of there alive. Those tree demons aren't strong, they just have tough hides. If I charge up, I can slice through them with one strike, Jin Ping said calmly. Suja gazed at the murky woods, muttering to himself that compared to being with Giant Pain, he'd much rather stay by my side, at least he wouldn't have tree demons chasing him here. None of us could figure out why there were tree demons in this secret realm when it was supposed to be devoid of life. Within the secret realm, a pair of eyes watched the students scattered across the 8 islands, their gaze brimming with amusement. Yu Qingyan, aren't you worried they might get hurt pulling stunts like this? A burly man asked Yu Qingyan with grave concern. Yu Qingyan studied the projections before slowly responding, how can they improve without danger? Back in my day at the Ghost Pavilion, I faced man-eating monsters daily. If those creatures ever invaded Shenzhou, wouldn't it fall to us from the Kanglin Academy to stop them? They are the strongest students in the academy, blessed with the best environment and talent. If they don't dare to face even this level of danger, how can they grow? It's only the first day, they'll have to come every day from now on. Time will change them. I want to instill in them a combat mindset. Only by improving themselves in battle can they truly grow. Cultivation alone only enhances certain aspects. I treat them all equally because weakness won't solve anything. Once, I watched my comrade die before my eyes, I regretted it, I was lost. I don't want these kids to end up like me. I want them to take control of their own choices, to break the chains that bind them. His words left the burly man deep in thought. Chapter 20 Fierce Battle, Wild Symphony. Unlike the forest, when I was on another volcanic island, I felt the scorching heat here splashing like sea waves. The endless tiny flames erupting from the volcano charged recklessly towards the already battered students as if possessed by souls. I saw a woman in a fiery red dress with strikingly crimson hair gazing with intense gravity at the advancing waves of flames. Jishaojie, these monsters born of flames are completely unstoppable. They attack without regard for their own lives, even Xingyu can't hold them back anymore. A panicked girl pleaded to Jishao, her tone bordering on complaint. Jishao frowned, her expression somewhat awkward, and said, I didn't expect the Kanglin Academy to change the secret realm rules this year. In previous years, there weren't these little things. What do we do now? Those little things are about to break into Qingyu Jie's protective shield. Should we press the help button on our student badges? No, at least we can't be the first to call for help. Since we're facing this situation, the people on other islands must be as well. Then let's see who can last the longest. Jishao's brows knitted tightly as a brilliant flame instantly ignited in her hand, shimmering like colorful fire. Her crimson eyes burned with frightening fury as she coldly declared, today, in this secret realm, I swear these little monsters will die here. Xingyu, prepare to drop the barrier, let those little things come in. Just as she suspected, students on the other islands had almost all encountered attacks by sinister creatures and could only defend passively. However, the one who got lost in the jungle was me. I ventured deep into the forest, stepping on patches of bones that crunched underfoot. Countless altars made of skeletal remains came into view, leaving me utterly shocked. What is this? I crouched down and touched the bones, filled with confusion. Because these remains clearly weren't human, they resembled those of a monster only described in books. Yet now they appeared here in this hidden realm. At that moment, several tree demons crept up behind me and gave me a forceful push. What does this mean? I glanced at the swaying tree spirits, feeling confused. I could come here entirely because of these tree spirits, they kept guiding me in a specific direction. But I couldn't understand their meaning. They only swayed their leaves, using their own way to guide me. Could it be that these trees want me to go to the altar? I pointed toward the center of the altar and looked at the tree spirits again. The tree spirits swayed even more cheerfully, as if nodding. Through this physical communication along the way, I seemed to have figured out what they meant. Yet I remained suspicious and wary, unsure why the tree demon had brought me here or what purpose this altar served. As I walked, I studied the altar's full appearance, but many areas were covered by skeletal remains, leaving only fragmented glimpses of red lines visible through the crevices. Could something be sealed here? The conclusion came easily to me. After all, I'd seen in mobile news reports that altars were typically used by cults for summoning creatures or sacrifices, though most such practices had been thoroughly documented by modern society. Just as I pressed forward, pondering these thoughts, a series of tremors echoed through the space, accompanied by Su Baozi's piercing screams. Sister Meng, don't run that way. Aren't we supposed to get out of here? The tremors in Suja's voice made me look in that direction. I saw Suja joining Jinping and the others, with countless tree demons chasing behind them. Brother Ping, didn't you say one sword strike could finish them? Suja yelled while running, but Jinping passed by him like an indifferent breeze, lightly remarking, too many. With one sword strike, I die, they live. Suja froze for a moment but didn't stop walking. Ahead, Luo Lin stood leaping from tree to tree, shouting, "The exit's up ahead. I see a big clearing over there. We can send a distress signal." As she spoke, waves of tremors rapidly intensified beneath her feet. She was actually standing on the branch of a tree demon when suddenly a trunk violently whipped against her, sending her flying as if hit by a car. Lin! Mingxi's eyes flickered with fury, but her dream abilities were useless against the tree demon. While sent spinning through the air, Luo Lin spat out a mouthful of blood. She never expected to be ambushed by the tree demon beneath her feet. If it weren't for her psychic shield absorbing most of the damage, she likely would have passed out. But she couldn't summon any more psychic energy after all. She was only at the dripping water realm, lacking the substantial spiritual power needed to activate such abilities. Suddenly, I appeared beside her, grabbing hold of her arm as I murmured calmly, "I'm here." Lorraine was fully conscious and recognized me instantly. Holding her, I descended slowly amidst the skeletal remains. My eyes seemed different somehow. I couldn't understand why Lorraine and the others had been chased by the tree demon while I had been brought here. Was the tree demon somehow drawn to me? Let go. A cold voice snapped me back to reality. The corners of my mouth still bore traces of pale red blood from injuries inflicted by the tree demon earlier. I casually glanced at her before releasing my grip and asked, "Why were those tree demons chasing you?" After freeing herself from my grasp, Lauren whispered, "I don't know. They've been pursuing us relentlessly." The distress signal function of our academy badge was blocked within this forest. The positioning can't find our location. Instructor, you told us to wait in a more open area. I nodded slightly and continued walking towards Suju and the others. While asking questions earlier, I'd observed our surroundings and noticed those tree demons seemed hostile only towards them, completely indifferent to me. They wouldn't even approach the altar's perimeter. I'll go save them. Chapter 21, The Skeletal Altar. Brother Ping, give that damn tree a whack. My ass can't take much more. Suja clutched his behind as he sprinted wildly. The trees seemed particularly fond of whipping his posterior, relentlessly attacking with their slender, whip-like branches. Giant Pain, carrying a wooden case on his back, kept parrying the tree's assaults with his sword in silence. Mengshi stood beside him, her face deathly pale, powerless to do anything but watch. She couldn't understand why the mystic realm had suddenly spawned so many tree demons. Judging by their cultivation levels, each of these monsters had reached the dripping water realm far beyond what their group of newly enrolled academy students could handle. If it were students from the regular class coming, they'd probably have been killed by the tree demons already. What's going on? Why did Kanglin modify the secret realm without notifying anyone? Mengshi's eyes dimmed with self-blame. She berated herself for being useless. Even the intel she'd provided earlier was wrong, putting her newly formed teammates in danger. Suddenly, Giant Pain's cold voice cut through. Mengshi, run! I can't hold them off much longer. These tree demons have too many attack patterns. Mengshi froze for a second, unmoving. Watching Giant Pain's frail frame shielding her, she was consumed by frustration. Quick, move! Giant Pain's expression grew increasingly ferocious, as though suppressing something within, but it wasn't fear of the tree demon. His furious roar snapped Mingxi back to his senses. Focus! A detached voice cut through, and the surroundings fell instantly silent. Even Giant Pain froze for a moment, turning toward the source of the voice. There I was, walking amidst the tree demons, hands aglow with verdant light, pacifying the agitated creatures. For a moment, only Suja's cries still echoed in my ears. I lifted my gaze, my face slightly pale. When I arrived, I saw with my own eyes how the floating aura of the tree demons continuously surged toward Giant Pain and the others. Only then did I realize it wasn't that the tree demons wanted to kill them. Rather, Giant Pain's group had unknowingly absorbed the energy from the tree demons, and that was why the creatures were attacking them. Just now, I used my own power to gather the scattered energy from the woods into my palm, then channeled it to the Treant, which finally brought everything back to peace. Let's go, I said wearily to Giant Pain and Mengshi. Without hesitation, Giant Pain grabbed the still-dazed Mengshi and dashed toward the exit. I didn't leave, watching with great interest as a tree demon chased after the screaming Suja. In my eyes, the aura above Suja's head grew increasingly dense. Originally faint, it continuously replenished itself due to the tree demon's pursuit. This must be Baozi's ability. The more he moves, the more energy he consumes. But his innate talent is, the more he eats, the stronger he becomes. He doesn't even realize he's absorbing energy from the tree demon's body, creating this endless cycle. I observed all this without intervening. Suja's current situation seemed favorable to me. At least there appeared to be no issues. I wanted to see his limits too. Perhaps today he could break through from the droplet realm to the river gazer realm. Poor Suja suffered bitterly, watching helplessly as his buttocks kept getting smacked. He had no idea what provoked the tree demon. The creature seemed fixated solely on spanking his rear. Brother Chen, save me. Suja had spotted me long ago. I stood amidst a group of motionless tree demons, watching him, yet I didn't lift a finger to help. I chuckled and stayed silent, quietly watching him take a beating. The tree demon seemed to have taken a peculiar liking to Suja, targeting only his backside without harming his life, as if it were all just playful roughhousing. A person and a tree were scurrying around right under my very eyes. Suja kept shouting, "Help me, Brother Chen." I didn't respond. After what felt like an eternity, Suja collapsed onto the ground, utterly exhausted and on the verge of tears. I approached him, channeling a gentle emerald glow in my palm before pressing it into the body of the tree demon that was still relentlessly whipping Suja's backside. The creature froze instantly. Suja lifted his eyes with an utterly lifeless expression. I smiled and said, "I just ran out of strength earlier." Suja remained silent. Beside the altar, Giant Pain sat silently on a pile of bones hugging his wooden chest, while Roland comforted Munchie, probably about what had just happened. I approached them with Suja, who was still clutching his buttocks in pain. "Everyone alright?" I asked calmly. Roland nodded slightly, the flush on her face already fading. This place was safely distant from the tree demons, they only watched from afar. In a measured tone, she explained, "Instructor Yu is already on their way." It seems similar incidents happened on other islands too, attacks by unknown sinister creatures. I frowned, not hard to guess this was pre-arranged by the academy. "About how much longer?" I asked. Lauren shook her head, she wasn't sure either. Just now when she sent a distress signal with her student badge, she noticed it wasn't just us calling for help. With 50 students in the special class divided into 10 squads scattered across different islands, it'd be impossible for the instructors to rescue everyone at once. Suddenly Suja said gravely, "Brother Chen, I think my physical strength has significantly improved. Looks like all those beatings I took earlier weren't for nothing." I chuckled. There had to be some improvement after taking such a brutal beating. Suja would have been furious if he hadn't gotten stronger. I looked toward the altar. Earlier, because of everyone's business, I hadn't examined it carefully. Somehow I felt this altar was connected to me, though I didn't know why I had this intuition. Ever since seeing how the tree demon treated me, I'd begun to harbor suspicions. I slowly retraced my previous path, guided by the crimson threads concealed beneath countless bones. What unknown things lay buried underneath? With indifference etched upon my face, I tread upon the skeletons, murmuring to myself, "Just what is it that draws me in?" Before I could take another step, a figure plummeted from the sky like a meteor, crashing violently into the ground. With a thunderous boom, dust and debris exploded outward as a silhouette gradually rose from the impact crater. The oppressive aura crashed over us like a tidal wave. Giant Pain and the others immediately rose to their feet, assuming defensive stances. Suja's eyes widened as he looked at the figure and then at the height from the sky, muttering, "Holy shit, that's a freaking flesh meteor." From the smoke, a booming voice rang out, "Ha ha ha ha, you brats did pretty well managing to hold out this long against those tree demons." Jin Ping and the others kept their defensive stances, glaring at the burly man who emerged. They'd never seen this man before, nor did they know who he was or why he'd suddenly descended from the sky. The burly man grinned at our wary expressions, a fierce, intimidating grin. "Prattlings," he said, "I'm your sequence master. No need to look at me like that." "What? A sequence master?" Suja looked utterly incredulous. "Wasn't our mentor Yu Qingnian? How could there suddenly be another one? Did teacher Yu retire just after taking up the position?" I lifted my gaze and said, "Are you someone sent by teacher Yu? You don't really look the part." The burly man chuckled and asked, "Then what do you think I look like?" After careful consideration and staring at the eerie aura hovering above his head, I hesitated for a few seconds before answering, "A terrifying monster." To my eyes, that swirling gray mist above his head churned like an ocean, and waves of menacing energy radiated from his entire being. "Ha ha ha ha, a monster? Kid, you're the first one brave enough to call me that," the man said, amused by my words as he burst into laughter. "I'm no monster. My name is Vero, your future sequence instructor for the ability classes. Every single day from now on, you'll spend your time under my thumb. And naturally, today's little game was specially prepared for you lot to make you face reality. If you don't want to endure this kind of training in the future, you're free to leave the special class now and join the ordinary class. I won't stop you." His words reached our ears yet none shrank back, except for Munchie whose eyes showed a trace of hesitation. Perhaps the earlier incident had shaken her conviction. At this moment, Luolin tugged at her hand slightly and gave a faint nod, the two seeming to communicate silently. Giant Pain touched the case wordlessly, his gaze resolute. Suja appeared not to have taken in these words at all, still lost in thought about whether his daily training meant his backside would be whipped every single day. In the end, no one stepped forward. I glanced at Suja, having confirmed he hadn't withdrawn, I turned away. Farlow grinned broadly, visibly excited, and continued, "Since that's settled, starting tomorrow, I shall devote everything I've learned in this lifetime to train you all into outstanding sequencers. Rest assured, no limbs will be broken. I'll treat you all very gently. Ha ha ha." Suja's face was full of horror, mixed with skepticism. Was this guy really going to be their future sequence master? At this rate, they'd probably end up in the infirmary every day. He absent-mindedly rubbed his still swollen butt. During today's ability class, Lauren asked Instructor Pharaoh, are we allowed to leave here now? Instructor Pharaoh checked his wristwatch and nodded, class dismissed. Then, he pulled out something resembling a teleportation talisman from his pocket and said, "This is the number 678 forbidden teleportation talisman. It'll take you out of the secret realm, though it'll cost you some mental energy." I took the paper-thin black slip and examined it closely. I'd only heard of forbidden artifacts in the news, each one equivalent to a piece of equipment, but with costs attached. Some terrifying ones required human lives to activate, though most were managed by the Special Affairs Bureau, with many others seized by cult organizations. The forbidden artifact in my hand had minimal activation cost and powerful functionality, just some mental energy for instantaneous teleportation. Mentor Vero watched my awestruck expression and said coolly, "This is one of the Academy's mass-produced forbidden artifacts. Every special class student receives one. Consider this familiarization training. You'll return it before going out to retrieve your own from the sequence pavilion." I curled my lip and pinched the feather-like talisman between my fingers. So it was mass-produced. Immediately my interest waned. Giant Pain and the others gathered around, curiously eyeing the talisman in my hand. Suja waved it around like a Taoist priest, but nothing happened. Unable to stand by, Instructor Farlow reminded, "Use psionic energy, didn't I just explain that?" Luo Lin snatched the talisman, channeled her psionic energy into it, and the talisman immediately burst forth with black light, enveloping all of us. As the light faded, we found ourselves at the entrance we had previously entered. The moment Luo Lin finished using the talisman, her face turned pale. She hadn't anticipated that teleporting a few people would completely drain the psionic energy she had just replenished. As a psychic user, her psionic reserves were far greater than those of Suju and the others. Mentor Pharaoh stepped out of the light with an unusual expression, silently wondering how this girl's mental energy could be so strong enough to pull him along as well, but he didn't show it. I handed the talisman to Mentor Pharaoh, interrupting his thoughts. "Since Mentor Luo is fine, we'll head back to rest now," I said. Suja can barely sit, his butt's all swollen. Mentor Pharaoh took the talisman and said sternly, "Gather here tomorrow. Don't be late." After Mentor Pharaoh vanished, we prepared to leave. Today's ability training had ended, and our group was among the last to leave the student island. On the way, Suja, still in pain, wasn't his usual lively self and even refused to visit the infirmary. I turned him down, and Giant Pain even teased him, saying the nurse at the clinic liked him. What's the big deal about showing a little butt? Suja was so angry he yelled that he'd kill Giant Pain. The moonlight was bewitching, a blood-red moon hanging in the sky. I sat by the window, reflecting on everything since enrolling. It all seemed to be falling into place. As I stared at the crimson moon, my consciousness was suddenly pulled into darkness. I'd experienced this twice before, so I remained remarkably calm. I looked at the gaping white door and the 6 closed ones in the darkness, wondering why I alone could reach this place, where these things came from, or how they dragged me in. The bell tolled, and that alluring scent reappeared, beckoning me to ascend the pristine staircase. But this time I refused, choosing instead to explore the darkness. I approached the green door, sensing the dense aura of life emanating from it, far more potent than the energy within the mystical realm. Then I moved toward the other doors, each exuding its own terrifying presence. As I reached the black door, my heart pounded violently, a mix of excitement and unease. Etched upon it was a grotesque scene, a masked man pierced by chains, suspended in the air, his gaze both indifferent and frenzied as he stared forward, as though looking directly at me. The closer I got, the fiercer my heart raced, until my chest ached with pain. Then, whispers brushed against my ears, and fog drifted from the black door like a demon's seduction. A beam of white light shot from the white door, the whispers vanished as eyeballs emerged on the red door, emitting crimson rays while runes sealed the aura of the black gate. With a shattering sound, I was ejected from the dark space. Time seemed to stand still. I remained seated by the windowsill, the crimson moon unchanged. Yet more doubts clouded my mind, enveloping me like the Borderlands black mist. Soon, the morning theoretical class ended. As we walked across the Academy Island, Giant Pain carried his case on his back and teased Suja. "Hey, Su Dumpling, was that medic girl from yesterday cute?" Suja stayed silent, quietly munching on his steamed bun. I chuckled and said, "Leave him alone. After getting his butt photographed in the infirmary yesterday, he's probably become a teaching example for the med students." Amidst noisy banter with Suja and Giant Pain, we arrived at the 8 grand gates of the secret realm. I frowned slightly, surprised to see our special class had noticeably fewer students after just one day, likely those who couldn't persist or were pushed out. Suja whispered ominously to me, "Shingu, I noticed several classmates are missing, especially those pompous ones from before. You don't think they died inside yesterday, do you?" I remained silent. While his theory might hold truth, fatal incidents were rare occurrences in our academy. Giant Pain then spoke up. "They were probably defeated and demoted. It's an elimination system." Pulling out his phone, he opened Kanglin Academy's official website where updates showed an anonymous challenger had seized special class qualifications from several students, with real-time updates tracking these developments. Someone made a move in just one day. Looks like quite a few students are eyeing our special class. Suja asked puzzledly. Ping Ge, why aren't they challenging me then? I'm at the bottom now, doesn't that make me the weakest one? Giant Pain seemed reluctant to discourage him and replied flatly, maybe they just didn't notice you, the 50th ranked. Suja was instantly speechless. I heard their conversation clearly and thought to myself, the elimination round has already begun. I'll have to step up my efforts. If I get knocked down by others, that 1,000 academic credit reward will be gone. No way I'm letting that happen. At this moment, Mengshi and Luolin walked over. Today they were dressed extraordinarily sharp, wearing half-length trench coats on top and tight black shorts below, probably aiming for light mobility, especially after yesterday's events. Suja's eyes nearly popped out of his head, barely restraining drool as he loudly exclaimed, damn, you two look awesome. Luolin smiled, none of yesterday's shyness remaining, while her gaze casually flicked toward me. She said, today, we should still head into the jungle island, let's fully explore that place first. Our group nodded slightly, sharing the same thought. We all wanted to go back and fight those tree demons again. This time we absolutely couldn't be as passive as yesterday. Yu Qingyan and Farlo stood before the main gate, observing our special class members with slight nods. Quite a few changes today, normal phenomenon, they remarked. Farlo hesitated for a few seconds before asking, same as yesterday then? Should I continue training them or step in directly? Yu Qingyan shook his head. No, you'll do as yesterday, let them explore the secret realm on their own. If you're always covering their backs, it could have unintended consequences. We need them to understand that there are real dangers in the secret realm, and we can't protect them all the time. Farlo nodded solemnly and asked, so I go alone? You won't join? Yu Qingyan laughed. Of course not. I'm just their theoretical sequence master, you're their combat sequence master. Should I be the one teaching them how to fight? That's definitely not my strength. His words earned him a look of disdain from Farlo, who couldn't believe someone who'd spent years in the Shadow Pavilion wouldn't know combat. Farlo teased instead, admit it, you're just afraid you'll go soft on them, aren't you? Let me have some fun with them, ha ha ha, this is my specialty. Today, Yu Qingyan merely spoke a few brief words to the newly joined class members before dismissing them. Everyone understood the rules. Many of the other students promptly headed into the Secret Realm Islands, eager to reclaim the dignity lost in yesterday's humiliations. I frowned as I reached the front gate, turning to the others and saying, we don't seem to have brought the forbidden object. Mingxi waved a black talisman in her hand and replied, knew you'd be unreliable. Lining and I fetched it yesterday, let's go. Then we stepped into the secret realm, still that same shadowy forest. But this time everything was different. The woods were illuminated, lanterns hung from every tree, their soft glow flickering in the dimness. Suja said with a solemn expression, Shengu, I have a bad feeling about today. I smiled, though I'd already noticed something was amiss here. Suddenly, a tremor ran through the ground. Numerous lantern-bearing trees began to sway, they seemed to sprout eyes in an instant, spotting us immediately. Their branches lashed out toward us without hesitation. Suja crossed his arms to block the attacks, while Jinping unsheathed his sword. A flash of blade light sliced through the whipping branches. Luo Lin used telekinesis to lift rocks from the ground, shielding herself and Mengshi from incoming strikes. The branches came for me too. Today I finally got to experience these tree demons' assaults firsthand. Thankfully, my abilities repelled them effortlessly. My gaze snapped to the lanterns, and instantly, I understood why. Suja laughed heartily, ha, brother Chen, looks like you can't escape these tree demons' attacks either. They all knew that for some reason I hadn't been attacked by the tree demons yesterday, but today was different. I just smiled. Since that's how it is, might as well have some fun with these tree demons. The forest was instantly filled with the sounds of battle. I stood my ground as every attack bounced off me the moment it made contact. This was the terrifying advantage of mastering energy manipulation. I could transform energy into protective shields and alter the trajectory of the tree demons' attacks. To me, this was just mental training. As long as my psychic strength held, those tree demons couldn't lay a finger on me. But I also have my frustrations. I can gather these energies, yet I can't use them offensively, only for passive defense. These tree demons attack from a distance with their branches. What if I could concentrate the energies radiating from the forest and shape them into projectiles to launch at the tree demons? Wouldn't that have destructive power? No sooner said than done. My eyes emitted a faint green glow as I began trying to gather and compress the forest's energy before me. In my eyes, energy was tangible matter. Compressing it to a certain point would trigger a change, just like how repeatedly folding paper increases its hardness. For a moment, green light blossomed before me. Sensing danger, many tree demons began frantically leaping about. Scattered energy poses no threat, but concentrated, it can bring about tremendous transformation. I can't hold on much longer, my mental energy is faltering. My eyes flickered with green light as I panted heavily. Compressing this energy was draining my mental reserves and was hard to control. I needed more practice to hone this ability. Giant Pain and the others had already noticed my condition. Suja's eyes widened in shock. Holy shit, is he conjuring a Rasengan? Rosalind's expression turned grave as she sensed the energy beginning to spiral slightly out of control. If I lost my grip, the resulting explosion could level this place. She said solemnly, get ready to leave this area now, or we'll get caught in the crossfire. It wasn't that she didn't want to help, but with different abilities, she could only sense that terrifying power without being able to influence it. My hands were still compressing the energy, though my face had grown pale. Almost there, any more compression and I'll lose control completely. The charging time's just too damn long. If it were shorter, this could have been a killer move. Clutching the green energy sphere, I scanned the emptied surroundings. The tree demons had long sensed the danger and fled, while Suju and the others watched from a distance, waiting to see my next move. I gripped the extremely unstable green sphere and instantly flung it away. In an instant, that dreadful aura descended like oppressive force upon the nearby trees. A flash of light burst forth, distorting the air as the green sphere erupted in a massive explosion. The resulting shockwave rippled outward like waves. Boom, boom. With just a single strike, a huge area was devastated as if hit by a missile. And this was merely the power of my dripping water realm attack. Sujo in the distance was completely dumbfounded, muttering to himself, holy crap, is this even real? A single blow obliterating such a vast area? Is this really training from the same era? In a hidden, shadowy corner of Demon City, several men clad in black cloaks conversed, their raspy voices echoing in the air. We can't stay in Demon City any longer. The agents from the Special Operations Bureau are like hounds. Wherever we run, they always find us. What should we do? Give up on opening Pandora's box? The ninth seat will kill us. No way. At the very least, we can't open Pandora in the Magic City now. See if we can contact the ninth seat. Shenzhen isn't entirely out of the question either. As they were conspiring, suddenly a piercing sound cut through the air, followed by a massive explosion. In an instant, the spot where they stood was engulfed in smoke. On a high platform, several people wearing monkey masks looked toward the scene. The whistling sound had been fired by a prone figure wielding a black sniper rifle. He muttered, target hit, requesting cleanup. Permission granted. The conversation ended as he pulled the trigger again, another deafening blast erupting. Begin searching for suspicious individuals. Those cultists aren't easy to kill, they're followers of the Pact Gods cult. We can't afford to let our guard down. The speaker was a man wearing a golden-edged monkey-patterned mask, standing atop a black rod while surveying the scene below. In an instant, their figures vanished from the high platform, leaving only the prone sniper sighing wistfully. Sigh. If only I weren't so lousy at close combat, I'd have shown you what I'm really made of. Deep in the jungle, I sat resting on a large boulder, watching the others fight. After executing that move earlier, I felt completely drained. The power is undeniable, but the charging time is way too long. Plus, it only worked because the secret realm is energy-rich. The mental strain is absolutely unsustainable. Turning the experience over in my mind, I realized the trial had exposed numerous flaws. Yet, if these weaknesses could be eliminated, what remained would be pure advantage. This technique packed tremendous power in an instant, catching opponents completely off guard. That absurdly compact attack unleashed force nearly equivalent to a Wanchuan level strike. Perhaps by continuously eliminating shortcomings, the power could keep increasing, but removing these flaws can't be rushed, it's far too mentally draining. I looked at Suja, Jinping, and the others. Their training methods were quite peculiar. Suja was still being chased and beaten by tree demons, while Jinping stood motionless, eyes closed, gripping a blood-red longsword like a master swordsman. Without using his eyes to observe his surroundings, each swing of his blade precisely intercepted the tree demon's attacks. I speculated he was contemplating insights. After all, with his unique talent, he could immerse himself in his own world. Those attacks seemed like trials for him. Neutralizing them became his training. Though this was ultimately his ability, so I wasn't entirely clear. Then I turned to Luo Lin and Mengshi, who barely fought the tree demons at all. Luo Lin blocked most attacks with telekinesis, while Mengshi stood with closed eyes as if she had drifted into a dream. I shook my head and stood up to continue my previous experiment. Soon after, intermittent explosions echoed through the forest once more. In the monitoring room of the trainee island, Yu Qingyan and Farlo were conversing. The surveillance equipment hidden somewhere unknown was transmitting live footage from the secret realm. Farlo remarked with slight astonishment, is this kid's ability really that absurd? He's only at the dripping water realm, yet he's causing such a commotion. Yu Qingyan chuckled and said, an S-class ability is no joke. S-rank? Vero was momentarily dazed. He carefully reviewed the student roster and their talent levels, but couldn't recall any student with S-rank talent. Yu Qingyan explained, that student named Li Chen was my pupil when he first arrived here. At that time, I didn't know he possessed S-rank abilities either. His true capabilities were concealed by agents from the Intelligence Bureau. Vero asked, then why not publicize his abilities? The academy could provide him with the best cultivation environment available. Yu Qingyan shook his head and said, prodigies are more easily buried in obscurity, and they often face malicious intent from countless people. There are no more than 50 individuals possessing S-rank talents in the entire nation. Most of those with S-rank abilities only reveal themselves after they've grown into major figures in their own right. Dangers lurk at every moment. Though sequencers are currently under strict regulation, many threats remain. If a child with S-grade talent perishes before reaching maturity, it would not just be a loss for Kanglan, but for the entire Xia nation. Faluo nodded silently, well aware of the immense pressure from the eerie towers at the borders. The monsters in the black mist beyond the borders are endless. Humanity's continued existence relies entirely on powerful individuals guarding these fronts. Yu Qingyan continued, there's no hurry to reveal his abilities until he's fully grown. The Academy tournament a year from now will be the perfect opportunity, then we'll see whether he's truly dragon material or just a worm. Even with extraordinary talent, one needs an equally formidable spirit to swim against the current. I'll head out first. Those little brats are practically wrecking the mystic realm, Valor said, wiping his fists. Go on. In the shadowy forest, my hands alternately grasped a glowing sphere and then shaped it into a long blade. Through continuous experimentation, I discovered numerous ways to harness this energy. Like this energy compressed blade in my hand, razor sharp and unbreakable. Since it's a condensed form of energy, I can disperse it or reassemble it at will, controlling it freely. It can also dissolve into countless shimmering fragments, floating midair. With just a flick of my finger, they become lethal projectiles, capable of piercing human flesh in an instant. With just a flick of my fingers, the towering Treant was instantly bombarded by countless energy-condensed blade strikes, their destructive power utterly terrifying, though the mental strain proved immense.